Chapter 1234. Xiaoqin smiled faintly at Xin Jingxian, patted the back of her hand and asked, "How did Consort Xia's cultivation go berserk the first time? What exactly happened at that time?" Hongzhu lowered his head and thought for a moment. He found it difficult to speak about Consort Xia's situation and was momentarily at a loss for words. Xin Jingxian and Xiaoqin's fingers were intertwined as they stared at Hongzhu. She also wanted to know what exactly happened to Consort Xia, so she did not say anything and quietly listened. After a moment of thought, Hongzhu took a deep breath, gnashed his teeth and said, "Back then, when Consort Xia was still in her budding years, she fell in love with a man from another sect, but that man had no interest in Consort Xia at all. If an ordinary person had no interest in her, they would have directly rejected her. But that man actually took advantage of Consort Xia's feelings and hooked up with a senior sister from my sect." "Damn it. How could he do that? This is too evil." Xin Jingxian could not help covering her mouth and exclaiming. Because of this, after senior sister Xiao Fei learned the truth, she began to abandon herself to despair, leaving behind a knot in her heart. At this point, Hongzhu reached out to smooth Consort Xia's beautiful hair and continued, "Later on, during one of her cultivation sessions, she was unable to overcome this inner demon and nearly went berserk. Fortunately, her sect master discovered it in time and saved her." Xiaoqin stared at Consort Xia's unconscious face and already knew the outcome of this matter. Consort Xia must have been unable to resist her inner demon, causing her to become like this and become somewhat impulsive. Thinking about how Consort Xia's husband Wang Xiongzhuang had never shared the same bed with her, so Consort Xia must have suffered a lot. Sure enough, Hongzhu continued, although sect master saved her life, he was unable to help her get rid of her inner demon, so senior sister Xiao Fei was left with a sequela. From time to time she would want to do that with a man. Unless she could be satisfied and released, it was very likely that her body would explode and she would die. Another scumbag. Without waiting for Xiaoqin to speak, Hong Yan, who was standing far away, snorted first. She glanced at Xiaoqin, intentionally or unintentionally, and cursed angrily. "I didn't expect Consort Xia to have such a complicated past." Xiaoqin naturally felt Hong Yan's hostility, but he didn't take it seriously. He just felt that it was unfair for the poor Xia Fei. After a thorough examination of Consort Xia's body, Xiaoqin confirmed that her vitals had stabilized and there were no abnormalities. He then used his primordial qi to wake her up. Before Consort Xia completely woke up, Xiaoqin specially instructed the other women, "By the way, when Consort Xia wakes up later, don't mention anything about her past. Just pretend that no one knows about it." Xin Jingxian and the rest nodded in agreement. They looked at Xia Fei and their hearts were filled with sympathy for her. However, Hong Yan was a little surprised as she looked at Xiaoqin. She didn't expect this guy to be so meticulous. Could it be that he was pretending to be a lecher? "Xiaoqin, Jingxian, Hongzhu? What happened? Why do I seem to have fallen asleep?" After a while, Xia Fei let out a low moan and slowly opened her eyes. She swept her gaze over everyone present, a confused look on her face, as if she had no recollection of what had just happened. Hongzhu was stunned for a moment before he quickly explained, "Senior sister Xiao Fei, your old illness relapsed just now. You hugged Xiaoqin like a madman, kissed and touched him, and you almost pushed him down and started working." "What? I actually did that?" Xia Fei was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. Her face flushed red as she stammered, Then what happened?" "After that." Hongzhu chuckled as he glanced at Xiaoqin. He then replied unhurriedly, "After that, it was fortunate that Xiaoqin was decent enough to stop you in time. He even treated you. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the two of you would have done some indecent things right there in front of everyone." Xia Fei hurriedly turned to look at Xiaoqin and said apologetically, "Xiaoqin, I'm really sorry I've let you witness such a laughable scene. This is already an old illness of mine. Previously, when I was cultivating the charm technique, my mind was restless and I ended up suffering from cultivation deviation. I nearly lost my life and even ended up with this chronic illness. I'm really sorry. According to Hongzhu, I should be fine now, right?" "It's fine. Hongzhu has already told me about your situation, so I helped you treat it." Xiaoqin helped Xia Fei up and gave a simple answer. After Xia Fei stood up, Xiaoqin let go of her hand. After all, the two of them were not officially boyfriend and girlfriend. Xiaoqin didn't want to be too intimate with her as he felt a little awkward in his heart. After Xiaoqin let go of her hand, Xia Fei blankly grasped at the air for a moment before letting go, feeling a little disappointed. Xiaoqin didn't notice this scene and indifferently continued, "As for your illness, I haven't completely cured it yet. I've only temporarily suppressed it. After all, this is your heart demon. As the saying goes, a heart disease needs medicine to cure it. You'll have to slowly adjust yourself in the future. Sooner or later you'll be able to recover. Oh, then thank you. CFA put away her disappointed mood and nodded in agreement. CFA also understood that Xiao Chen was deliberately keeping a distance from her. Although she was a little depressed, she had no intention of giving up. It was said that a woman chasing a man was separated by a thin layer of yarn. CFA firmly believed that Xiao Chen would accept her sooner or later. You're welcome. It's nothing. Xiao Chen looked up at the sky and said with a smile, well, it's almost time. Let's go out and meet the two people first. I don't want them to get impatient waiting outside and start grumbling. After that, Xiao Chen removed the barrier around them and removed the camouflage. He held Xin Jingshuan's hand and strode out of the seclusion site. Hong Yan followed behind Xiao Chen and Xin Jingxian in confusion. She stared at Xiao Chen's calm back in confusion. She felt that this so-called lecher was becoming more and more difficult to understand. When CFA was acting up, this guy actually didn't take advantage of her. Could it be that he was really unmoved by CFA's temptation? No. It must be because there were too many people present at the time. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, Xiao Chen didn't dare to act too presumptuously, so he pretended to be a good person to confuse others. That Xin Jingxian must have been tricked by him in this way. This person is really too bad. Hongzhu and CFA walked at the very back. The two women tacitly looked at each other, their eyes seemingly hiding a very deep meaning. Seeing that Xiao Chen had walked far away, Hongzhu said in a low voice, Senior Sister Xiao Chen, your acting skills are quite good. You clearly remember what you did, yet you deliberately pretended to have amnesia. Even Xiao Chen was tricked by you. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. Chapter 1235. Little Hongzhu, you even dare to tease your senior sister? CFA lightly knocked on Hongzhu's head and pouted. Io, don't hit me. If I hadn't helped you out, you might have been even more embarrassed. Hongzhu protested with a grin. CFA smiled faintly as she stared at Xiao Chen's back with a gentle expression. Although he wasn't very imposing, he was still standing proudly and said, In fact, I really should thank you because I don't know how to explain that matter to Xiao Chen. Fortunately, you took the initiative to explain it to him, otherwise he would definitely think of me as a female sex fiend. Don't worry. Xiao Chen isn't the kind of narrow-minded person who can't distinguish right from wrong, and he won't dislike you because of this matter. I'm guessing that he will accept you sooner or later. You just have to wait to marry into the Xiao family and accompany his wives. Hongzhu squinted his eyes and consoled. But CFA suddenly thought of something and frowned, hesitating to speak. What's wrong? Hongzhu asked in confusion when he saw CFA's strange expression. It's nothing, it's just that you missed something just now. CFA blushed and hesitated for a moment before whispering, Actually, I've never done that with a man. Ah? Hongzhu was taken aback. He focused his mind and thought for a moment before saying in a soft voice, I know that you and your senior brother didn't make love, but after you suffered cultivation deviation, you developed a mental barrier and went to the secular world, so I don't know what happened after that. Then, when you had an attack, what did you do? Cough cough, you just said that as long as I can release it, my heart demon will be alleviated. Although CFA was a little embarrassed, she didn't hide anything from her closest junior sister and explained in a low voice, if you want to release it, you don't necessarily need a man, you can solve it yourself. So that's how it is. Hongzhu suddenly understood. No wonder CFA had said that she had never been with a man even though she had clearly lost her virginity. It turned out that she was referring to himself. Thinking of this, Hongzhu patted the back of CFA's hand and comforted her with a smile. Don't worry, I'll find a chance in the future to help you talk to Xiao Chen. I'll make sure he doesn't have a knot in his heart. It seems that you know Xiao Chen quite well. After revealing her most private secret, CFA suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. She pulled Hongzhu's hand and teased him with a smile. How is it? Little Hongzhu, do you want to consider marrying Xiao Chen together with Big Sister? This way we can stay together every day and go wherever we want to play. Sigh. Senior Martial Sister Xiao Fei, you are too optimistic. The Cultivation World's sacrificial ceremony is about to begin. At that time, we will all become the sacrificial offerings of our clans. Whether we can come back alive is still unknown. Let's wait until we are truly safe and sound. Although Hongzhu was somewhat tempted, he still sighed in the end. TSK, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. With your temper, You definitely won't willingly become a sacrificial offering. I'm guessing that you've already thought of a way to escape, right? Xie Fei took a deep look at Hongzhu. She knew this junior martial sister of hers quite well after spending so many years together. Hongzhu chuckled and whispered, I can hide it from others but I can't escape your eyes. In fact, I want to take advantage of the fact that before the sacrificial ceremony begins. Just as he was about to reveal his entire plan, Hongzhu suddenly saw Song Qingshu walking towards them from not far away. He hurriedly stopped himself and gave Xie Fei a meaningful look, whispering, Forget it, I'll find a chance to discuss it with you later. For now we should first deal with this silly boy from the Song family. Xie Fei nodded slightly. She could more or less guess what Hongzhu planned to do next. It was nothing more than finding a place to hide and try not to be found by the Hong family as much as possible. Once the storm of the sacrificial ceremony was over, they could then consider what to do next. However, Xie Fei felt that although Hongzhu's plan was good, the Hong family was a member of the Immortal Cultivation sect and had eyes all over Wuxia. It would not be that easy for her to hide. Hongzhu, Xie Fei, are the two of you all right? Song Qingshu walked up to them and asked with a concerned look on his face. Song Qingshu finally felt a lot more at ease when he sensed the aura of a martial supremacy coming from Hongzhu's body. After all, it had been too long since Hongzhu and Hong Yan had made their breakthroughs, so he was worried that something might have happened to them. Of course we're fine. Do you want something to happen to us? Do you even know how to talk? Hongzhu rolled his eyes and grumbled with a pout. Oh, no, that's not what I meant. Although Song Qingshu was usually very arrogant, he was completely helpless in front of the little she-devil, Hongzhu. He hurriedly and carefully explained, I saw that Hong Yan seemed to be a little absent-minded when she came out. Third young Master Hong asked her a few questions, but she didn't answer them. That's why I specifically came to find you to understand more about the situation. Hong Yan usually has this kind of muddle-headed personality. What's so strange about that? Just ignore her. Hongzhu shrugged and glared at Hong Yan from afar, secretly warning her not to say anything that she should not say. I see. Fortunately, all of you have advanced to the martial supremacy realm. This trip to the mystery realm was not in vain. Song Qingshu nodded and did not think too much about it. Hongzhu could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Song Qingshu. He looked past him and said to Xiaoqin, Little brother Xiaoqin, do you have any other matters to attend to? If not, why don't you come with us to the Hong residence for a few days? Let big sister treat you well. I believe you have a lot to talk about with your goddess Shen, right? Xiaoqin pondered for a moment before he said, Nothing important, but... Before Xiaoqin could finish speaking, Song Qingshu suddenly had a brainwave. He suddenly remembered what he and third young Master Hong were discussing outside, so he hurriedly said, Hongzhu is right. Since little brother Xiao has helped us so much, we should also properly thank you. Moreover, we might need your help in the future. We hope that little brother Xiao can do us the honor and come to the Hong residence and Song residence for a chat. Who's your brother? Don't randomly call people relatives over there. Xiaoqin did not hide his disdain for Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu had been given the cold shoulder. He wanted to flare up, but Hongzhu was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. He could only resentfully turn his head and pretend that he had not heard anything. Xiaoqin did not object to going to the Hong residence as a guest. However, even if he wanted to go, he had to first pick up Jia Muzin, Qing Menjing, and the others. Chapter 1236. However, Xiaoqin had another question, so he turned to Hongzhu and asked, That's right, little Hongzhu, I heard you mention something about a sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world. What is that? When Xie Fei and Hongzhu heard Xiaoqin's question, they both stared blankly for a moment. Xie Fei's face, which had already returned to normal, suddenly turned red again, and she subconsciously took a step back. You heard it? When she and Hongzhu were whispering about the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world, he had actually heard it. This meant that the little secret that she had told Hongzhu before had also been heard by Xiaoqin without missing a single word. Xie Fei's first reaction was to feel shy, but after she took a step back, she came to her senses. What was she feeling shy about? She had originally wanted to tell him these words, but now Hongzhu didn't need to find an opportunity to repeat them. Hongzhu was in a daze because she suddenly remembered that Xinjingshan was also going to participate in the sacrificial ceremony. For a moment she didn't know how to explain it to Xiaoqin, so she could only stammer and vaguely say, It's nothing, it's just a ceremony to open the cultivation world. Hongzhu didn't dare to tell the truth to Xiaoqin, because she knew this guy's temperament very well. If he knew the ins and outs of this matter, then he would definitely not let Shen Jingxian take the risk. It was very likely that he would even stop Lu Shuangshuang and Ke Lin. If that happened, he would forcibly stop the sacrificial ceremony. In this way, Xiaoqin would inevitably offend those people from the cultivation sects, which would cause him a lot of trouble. But if she didn't explain it in detail, Xiaoqin was not a fool and would certainly ask for the details. When that time came, how could she cover up this lie? Roar! Just as Hongzhu was hesitating, gusts of cold wind suddenly began to blow around his seclusion area, and a deafening roar came from the nearby forest, as if it was coming from some terrifying and ferocious beast. Everyone, who had their own thoughts, immediately became alert and looked in the direction of the roar. They heard the rustling of leaves, and not long after, a pair of green things appeared in the depths of the forest. They kept moving toward them, and they seemed to be moving very fast. They were like two will-o'-the-wisps that were getting bigger and bigger, and they were particularly eye-catching in the dark forest. Xiaoqin, what is that? Shen Jingxian was scared out of her wits. She grabbed Xiaoqin's hand tightly and unconsciously took a step back, hiding behind Xiaoqin. I think it should be a wandering beast, and it's quite strong. Xiaoqin's voice was a little solemn. He took a step forward and blocked Shen Jingxuan's petite body. Even Xiaoqin found the roar a little ear-piercing. Therefore, he immediately determined that the beast was not weak, and it was at least on equal footing with him. But shouldn't the strength of all living beings be suppressed in the venerable secret realm? Why could this beast release its full strength? Could it be that there was something special about it? The rest of them also looked a little pale. A few girls took small steps back, while Song Qingshu and third young Master Hong stared at the forest, extremely nervous and alert. Song Qingshu and third young Master Hong could clearly feel that the thing running in the forest should be stronger than them. Swoosh! Just as everyone was feeling anxious and guessing, they saw a snow-white beast suddenly rushing out of the forest. Xiaoqin looked over and saw that the beast had a lion's face, slender limbs covered in thick white fur, a thick and long tail hanging on the ground, and a pair of eyes that were like two copper bells, glowing with a faint green light. It stared at Xiaoqin and the others, looking extremely terrifying. What the hell is this? What the hell is this? Xiaoqin frowned. He felt a little helpless as he looked at the beast that was much taller than him and had never seen before. Roar! Before anyone could react, the white beast roared angrily and suddenly revealed the powerful aura of a level 7 honored realm. Then it raised its front hooves and smashed them heavily on the ground. With a muffled dong sound, a shockwave visible to the naked eye spread rapidly along the ground with the gigantic beast at the center, attacking Xiaoqin and the others. Everyone be careful. Xiaoqin immediately shouted a warning. He grabbed Shen Jingxian, who was behind him, tightly. Then he felt the ground beneath his feet shake, as if he had encountered a strong earthquake. It felt like the mountains were collapsing and the earth was cracking. Fortunately, Xiaoqin was already an expert at the perfected original infant stage, and he was supporting Shen Jingxian, so the two of them were not affected. Although they swayed left and right, they still stood firm in the end. However, the others were not so lucky. They were all waving their arms and legs, screaming in fear, and fell to the ground one after another. It was a rather embarrassing scene. As for the white beast, it did not move, and its pair of green eyes swept across everyone present. In Xiaoqin's opinion, it was as if it had a mind of its own, and by observing everyone, it was sifting through something. Before everyone could stand up, the white beast exhaled a cloud of white gas from its nose and suddenly locked onto Hongzhu and Hong Yan as its targets, and rushed toward them. Bastard, you're courting death. Song Qingshu was shocked and she was the first to jump up. Although she knew that the white beast was stronger than her, she did not hesitate to activate her mental cultivation method, and displayed the cultivation of a level 5 martial honor. She swung her palm at the beast with all her might. Seeing this, third young Master Hong did not dare to be negligent. After all, he knew that Song Qingshu might not be able to kill the white beast by herself. Therefore he also flew over and punched it hard. Bang! As third young Master Hong was closer to the white beast, his punch arrived first and landed on the beast's head first. However, it did not affect the white beast at all. Instead, he howled, feeling that the bones in his fingers were about to break. On the other side, Song Qingshu's palm wind arrived and slammed heavily on the giant beast's body. However, the result was not much different from third young Master Hong's. It was like hitting cotton, and the giant white beast did not stop at all. The harassment of the two ants not only failed to stop the white beast, but also angered it. The white beast suddenly shook its head, and third young Master Hong, who was caught off guard, was sent flying and fell heavily on the ground not far away. Blood immediately flowed out of his nose and mouth, and he fainted without a sound. Third young Master Hong. Song Qingshu was shocked, and she quickly ran toward third young Master Hong. However, she had only taken a few steps when she suddenly heard an ear-piercing sound behind her. Chapter 1237. Alarms went off in Song Qingshu's heart. He quickly turned his head to look and saw that the white beast was waving its thick and long tail. Like a whip, it drew a strange arc in the air and lashed at him. Motherf asterisk cur. Song Qingshu was both shocked and enraged. He cursed under his breath and hurriedly crouched down. The tail whizzed past his head. Song Qingshu breathed a long sigh of relief after narrowly avoiding the fatal blow. Just as he was secretly rejoicing in his luck, the familiar sound of something tearing through the air rang out behind him once again. Song Qingshu's expression changed greatly. He had never imagined that the white beast's tail would be so agile. He had just raised his body, and before he could even react, the beast's thick tail had already bound his body. Not only had the white beast bound Song Qingshu, but its tail was also tightening around him. Song Qingshu felt as if he had been entangled by a giant python. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. Even if he exhausted all his strength, he would not be able to break free from the fate of being bound. Crack. Not long after, the clear sound of bones breaking was heard. Song Qingshu's vision went black and he immediately lost consciousness. His head drooped weakly. It could only be said that the white beast had no intention of taking third young Master Hong and Song Qingshu's lives. After knocking them out, it released its tail and tossed Song Qingshu aside. Then it took a step forward again and slowly approached Hongzhu and Hong Yen. Hong Yen and Hongzhu's faces were deathly pale. They stumbled back step by step, unable to muster up any will to resist. Just as the white beast was about to touch the two women, a figure suddenly flashed out and blocked its path. Although I don't know what you're trying to do, I advise you not to take another step forward. Otherwise, this young master will let you have a taste of being electrocuted until your bones turn white. The newcomer was none other than Xiao Chen. He shielded Shen Jingxian and the others behind him. He formed two electric balls with his hands and stared coldly at the giant white beast in front of him, warning sternly. Although Xiao Chen sensed that the beast in front of him only had the strength of a level 7 martial honor, he did not underestimate it at all. Even if he did not take into account the fact that it had easily killed 2 cultivators, Xiao Chen knew that it was an extraordinary creature based on the fact that the beast's level was not suppressed in the martial honor's secret realm. Perhaps the white beast understood Xiao Chen's words, or perhaps it was afraid of the electric ball in his hand. It immediately stopped in its tracks and stood a short distance away, facing off against Xiao Chen. Very well, since you know how powerful my Thunderball technique is, why don't you scram? Everyone here is under my protection, you don't have a chance. Xiao Chen saw that the white beast had stopped moving and was overjoyed in his heart. The women behind Xiao Chen all had different expressions when they heard his words. Shen Jingxian naturally looked at him with a gentle gaze. Although Xie Fei was afraid, she was also faintly happy. Hongzhu could not help but roll his eyes at the back of Xiao Chen's head. Only Hong Yen stomped her foot angrily, but she did not dare to protest at this time. However, Xiao Chen's threat did not work this time. The white beast did not retreat. Instead, it anxiously shifted its feet and continued to sweep its green eyes over Hong Yen and Hongzhu. Its eyes were filled with greed. What's wrong? You still won't leave, right? It seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you won't give up today. Xiao Chen said fiercely when he saw that the white beast had no intention of leaving. He then pushed his hands forward and quickly threw 2 electric balls at it. Roar! The white beast let out a loud roar and did not seem to have any intention of dodging. Instead, it went straight to meet the 2 electric balls, one on the head and the other on the chest. 2 bolts of blue lightning immediately exploded on its body. Although it wasn't like when Xiao Chen smashed the Awakening Heaven sect's disciples, which caused them to be charred black and killed on the spot, it still had an obvious effect. The electric current flickered with blue light in the white fur of the huge beast, constantly shuttling back and forth. The white beast was obviously suffering from the electric currents and could not help but wail in pain. Its huge body trembled a little, but it still managed to hold on and did not collapse. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so resistant to lightning. Why don't you try 2 more? The corners of Xiao Chen's mouth drew a cold arc and he condensed 2 electric balls in his hands. He did not forget to taunt, "Don't worry, Xiao Chen is in a good mood today. I'll give these 2 to you for free." Enjoy them or else you won't get another chance like this. After saying that, Xiao Chen raised his hand and directly threw the 2 electric balls at the white beast without choosing an angle. However, this time the white beast did not resist. It had obviously realized that it was no match for Xiao Chen. When it saw the 2 electric balls flying at it again, its green eyes flashed with fear. It immediately turned around and fled into the depths of the forest. Shen Jingxian, Hongzhu, and the others saw the white beast turn around and flee. They all breathed a long sigh of relief and their originally nervous mood immediately relaxed. As for Xiao Chen, he still had a grave expression on his face as he watched the white beast flee. At this moment, not only did he not feel the joy of victory, but an ominous feeling welled up in his heart. This was because the seclusion point where Jia Muzhen and Cheng Menjing were cultivating happened to be the direction in which the white beast was fleeing. Little Hongzhu Jingxian, take Song Qingshu and third young master Hong away from here first. Xiao Chen turned around and quickly instructed, I must follow them immediately and eliminate this beast. Otherwise, Cheng Menjing and the others will be in danger. After giving a few simple instructions, Xiao Chen immediately used his movement technique to chase after them. He secretly prayed that Cheng Menjing and the others would obediently stay in the seclusion point after they finished consolidating their cultivation and would not run around. Ah, Menjing is here too. Shen Jingxian exclaimed. Why did Menjing also come to the venerable realm? With her insignificant strength, wouldn't it be very dangerous for her to stay here? As she worriedly watched Xiao Chen's figure quickly disappear into the fog, Shen Jingxian suddenly thought of something and immediately shouted, Xiao Chen, will you come back? Should we wait for you here? After shouting, Shen Jingxian waited for a while, but did not hear any response. Forget it, Jingxian. I reckon that Xiao Chen ran too quickly and can't hear us now. Hongzhu comforted Shen Jingxian and patted her shoulder. In fact, she also wanted to know if Xiao Chen would come back. After all, Song Huawu and the others were still staying with the Hong family and were searching for Xiao Chen's whereabouts with Hong Ying. Chapter 1238. Heavens! Hongzhu slapped his forehead and blamed himself with a vexed expression. I actually forgot to tell Xiao Chen about Song Huawu and the others. What should we do now? Are we really going to stay in this dangerous place and wait for him to return? Hongzhu and Shen Jingxian looked at each other with conflicted expressions on their faces. Hong Yan, on the other hand, stood rooted to the spot with a perplexed look on her face. She did not utter a single word as the scene of Xiao Chen standing in front of her and chasing away the giant beast kept replaying in her mind. That Xiao Chen. What kind of person is he? Why is he willing to take the risk to protect everyone? If it's just to protect Shen Jingxian, then he only needs to escape with Shen Jingxian. Furthermore, according to Hongzhu's observations, his strength does not seem to be that great. Hongzhu could not sense how high his rank was at all. Apart from knowing a few strange spells, there was nothing special about him. Is he not afraid of death? Or does he have other motives? Hongzhu, it looks like we have to leave this place as soon as possible. Just as the three of them were in a daze, a mature female voice sounded. CFA had already finished inspecting Song Qingshu and third young master Hong's injuries and was walking over with a grave expression. What's wrong? How are their injuries? Hongzhu returned to his senses and asked apologetically. Actually, he should have been the one to do this. He had been too busy talking to Shen Jingxian just now and had forgotten about it. He had even needed CFA's help. CFA shook her head and said in a low voice, Song Qingshu has a few broken ribs, and third young master Hong's internal organs are severely damaged. Although I have already given them healing pills, I don't think it will have much of an effect. It's better to carry them out and treat them as soon as possible. Then Xiao Chen he. Shen Jingxian bit her lower lip and looked in the direction that Xiao Chen had left in. She had wanted to wait for Xiao Chen to return before leaving, but she did not expect the two of them to be so badly injured. She was too embarrassed to say anything. How about this? As for Xiao Chen. Hongzhu hesitated for a moment, then comforted her. Since he was able to come to the venerable realm to cultivate, he should have stayed in the inner martial world for some time. It won't be difficult for him to find out about the existence of the Hong and Song families. I believe it won't be long before he takes the initiative to find us. Although Hongzhu said so, in truth she had no idea whether Xiao Chen would actually come knocking on her door. But she really couldn't care so much right now. After all, a person's life was at stake. Everything else could only wait. Well, that's the only thing we can do now. CFA nodded in agreement. She looked around and nimbly rolled up her sleeves. While looking for materials, she said, Song Qing-shu and Hong Third Young Master's injuries are more serious. Moreover, they are both injured in their internal organs. We can't make too much vibration, otherwise it's very likely that their injuries will worsen. How about this? Let's first find some sturdy branches and make 2 simple stretchers. Then we'll use the stretchers to carry them out. Hong Zhu naturally did not have any objections and was just about to head off with Xie Fei to look for the materials when he turned around and saw Hong Yen still standing there in a daze. He shouted, Hong Yen, don't just stand there in a daze. Hurry up and give us a hand. Okay. Hong Yen was startled by Hong Zhu's shout. She quickly returned to her senses and hurriedly agreed. She collected her thoughts and followed behind Hong Zhu. Since he could not figure out Xiao Chen's intentions, he could only put it aside for the time being. In any case, the 2 of them might not have a chance to meet in the future, so there was no point in thinking about the thoughts of a pervert. I'll help you as well. Shen Jingxian took another deep look in the direction that Xiao Chen had left in. Finally, she turned around and walked over to Hong Zhu and the others, joining them in picking up materials. Although Shen Jingxian very much wanted to catch up to Xiao Chen and reunite with Cheng Menjing, whom she had not seen for a long time, when she considered the terrible situation they were in and the dangerous environment of the Venerable Realm, she had no choice but to give up on this idea. Shen Jingxian secretly prayed in her heart that Xiao Chen would be able to find the Hong and Song families just as Hong Zhu had said. Otherwise, after the ceremony in the cultivation world, it was very likely that she would never see him again. On the other side, after chasing for a while, Xiao Chen was shocked to find that even though he was an expert at the nascent soul stage, he could not catch up to this white colossus at all. Furthermore, if it was not for the fact that this fellow would occasionally slow down, giving him a chance to catch up to it, he would have nearly lost it a few times. Xiao Chen did not believe this and quickened his pace once again. However, he was dumbfounded to find that the white colossus seemed to have increased its speed as well. In any case, it maintained a certain distance from him. Suddenly, a sense of defeat washed over him. Xiao Chen gloomily asked in his heart, Elder Heaven Ancestor, what is this huge beast in front of us? Have you seen it before? A base spiritual beast. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice carried a hint of sorrow as he lamented, Kid, your luck is indeed not bad. This kind of base spiritual beast was extremely rare even in ancient times. I did not expect to see it in a place like this. But it's no wonder base spiritual beasts like to stay in places with abundant heaven and earth spiritual qi. The Venerable Realm just happens to provide a good living environment for it. It's actually a spiritual beast? Xiao Chen said in astonishment. I realized that its speed is quite fast. If it wasn't for the fact that I have the strength of a full foundation original infant stage cultivator and have enough qi to support me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to run over it. Just as Xiao Chen spoke, the base spiritual beast seemed to have increased its speed. Xiao Chen did not dare to delay and immediately took a deep breath and quickened his pace to catch up. Xiao Chen, have you lost your mind from chasing it? The Elder Heaven Ancestor could not help but laugh. He went straight to the point and said, Can't you see that it is not using its full strength? If it wasn't purposely trying to lead you to a certain place, I'm afraid it would have lost you long ago. Would it still be able to keep up with you like it is doing now? Now that you mention it, that does seem to be the case. It looks like this base spiritual beast is purposely suppressing its strength. After the Elder Heaven Ancestor's reminder, a light bulb went off in Xiao Chen's mind and he realized that it was indeed the case. During the chase, the base spiritual beast would occasionally turn its head around to look at Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen initially thought that it was trying to see if it could shake him off. But now, it seemed that the base spiritual beast was trying to determine if he could keep up with it or not. Sometimes, when he was a little further behind, the base spiritual beast would slow down as if it was waiting for him. Chapter 1239. I never thought that this spiritual beast would be so intelligent. But why did I feel that it was only at the 7th level of the martial honor realm? Xiao Chen asked doubtfully, did I sense it wrong? But it really couldn't withstand the attack of my electric ball technique. You're right, it's only at the 7th level of the martial honor realm. This can't be hidden in the eyes of cultivators. It's just that it's known for its speed, which is why you couldn't catch up to it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor explained. I see then. Xiao Chen nodded. Just as he was about to ask more questions, the Elder Heaven Ancestor seemed to know what he was going to ask and immediately answered, This base spiritual beast likes to get close to people with spiritual qi. According to my observations, it originally wanted to take Hong Zhu and Hong Yen away. But after you displayed your skills, it changed its mind. I'm guessing that it realized that the spiritual chi in your body is more abundant than that of the two girls, so it chose you instead. Oh, but why did it lead me to Cheng Menjiang's place of seclusion? Isn't it afraid that I'll kill it directly? Xiao Qin scratched his head, still a little confused. He couldn't figure out what the base spiritual beast was up to. I don't know about that. You can ask it yourself when you catch it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor smiled and said, when this kind of spiritual beast cultivates to the martial honor realm, it basically has intelligence and can speak the human language. It's just that it hasn't learned it systematically, so its pronunciation isn't very accurate. Damn. It can speak the human language? It's already strange enough that it can speak, why does it have an accent? Xiao Qin shook his head, feeling that his view of the world had been changed. The Elder Heaven Ancestor looked ahead and immediately reminded him, Xiao Qin, stop chatting. Look, the base spiritual beast has changed direction. It doesn't seem to be heading for Cheng Menjiang and the others. Be careful. Holy sh**t. Xiao Qin wanted to know more about the base spirit beast, but after hearing the words of the Elder Heaven Ancestor, he quickly looked over and found that the base spirit beast had indeed changed its route and was running deeper into the forest. Moreover, it was running faster and gradually, it was out of sight. Xiao Qin did not dare to ask any more questions. It seemed that he would not be able to catch up with them with his feet. He quickly summoned his flying sword and stepped on it, tearing through the air to chase after them. After entering the forest, Xiao Qin only felt that the fog in front of him was getting thicker and thicker. Originally he could see more than 100 feet away, but gradually he could only see around him. Moreover, the surrounding scenery was even more gloomy and terrifying than before. Strange branches of withered trees grew out from the sides, looking like bony arms waving towards the sky. It was extremely terrifying. Although he did not know where he was at the moment, Xiao Qin still relied on the powerful power of his divine sense to follow closely behind the Baizhe spiritual beast. Xiao Qin, there's danger ahead. Get out of the way. Just as Xiao Qin was about to reach the Baizhe spiritual beast, the Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly warned him in his divine sense. Boom. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's warning was a little too late. Just as Xiao Qin was alerted, he suddenly saw a huge beam of white light flash in front of him, almost blinding his eyes. Then, a lightning bolt as thick as a bucket fell from the sky without warning, directly striking his position. Although the moment the Elder Heaven Ancestor warned him of danger, Xiao Qin immediately revolved his Yuan Qi to increase his defense. But against that lightning bolt, his pitiful defense was almost useless. Ah! Xiao Qin, who was struck head-on, could not help but let out a blood-curdling scream. He immediately lost his balance and fell from the flying sword. Only a series of crackling sounds could be heard. Who knew how many branches he broke before he fell heavily to the ground? Xiao Qin only felt an unparalleled pain, then he had an intimate contact with the ground. He vomited a few mouthfuls of blood and soon fainted, lying there motionless. Xiao Qin's hair had already been completely scorched and curled, looking like an afro. The blue lightning had not disappeared yet, it was still jumping and burning on his body. There were even a few places where sparks had already appeared, and there was even a faint, zzz sound of electric current. The strange thing was that the Baizhe spiritual beast had led Xiao Qin here, and after he was struck by lightning, there was no trace of him. No one knew where he went. When he regained consciousness again, Xiao Qin found himself in the sea of divine knowledge. The Elder Heaven Ancestor beside him kept shaking his head and sighing, and the floating underworld fire and Xiaomao were also worried. Seeing this scene, Xiao Qin immediately realized the seriousness of the problem. He forcibly suppressed the uneasiness in his heart and asked carefully, Elder Heaven Ancestor, was I suddenly struck by lightning? What is the origin of that lightning? With my current strength, even if I was struck by lightning, I wouldn't be so seriously injured, right? What the hell is going on? If I'm not wrong, you should have been struck by one of the 5 elements calamities, the thunder calamity. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said with a dignified expression. This kind of lightning strike is different from ordinary lightning. The damage caused by it, not to mention your strength at the peak of the nascent soul stage, even a master at the profound ascending stage may not be able to withstand it. So powerful. According to what you said, I'm not dead now, am I? Xiao Qin was a little dumbfounded, and an ominous feeling welled up in his heart. Isn't this too ridiculous? How could I be struck to death by lightning? How could cultivators who claim to be omnipotent and awesome, be so unreliable? How do I say this? In theory you're not dead yet, but you're not far from death. The Elder Heaven Ancestor hesitated for a moment and frankly said. This answer made Xiao Qin even more depressed. He didn't expect the 5 elements calamity in the Venerable Realm to be so powerful that even cultivators couldn't resist it. No wonder when Chou Wanqian mentioned the 5 elements calamity, he put on a face as if he didn't believe that he couldn't kill them. It turned out that it was true. Elder Heaven Ancestor, you'd better finish what you want to say in one go. What do you mean by not far from death? Why do I sound so nervous? Xiao Qin said with a bitter face. It's like this: after you were struck by lightning, the lightning struck your body, and now your body's automatic recovery mechanism is constantly fighting against it. Elder Sky explained helplessly. However, this rate of recovery is far from being able to keep up with the continuous damage caused by the lightning strike. Therefore, your body is currently in a process of continuous deterioration, which means that you are not far from death. Damn. Then what am I doing in this sea of consciousness? Xiao Qin put his hand on his forehead and suddenly looked at the Elder Heaven Ancestor. Elder Heaven Ancestor, you're not thinking of... Chapter 1240. That's the only way. The Elder Heaven Ancestor nodded and said, your body is about to be destroyed. So, I have to separate your soul from your body. Then, I have to find a way to get you a new body. Otherwise you will vanish into thin air. No way. Is there no other way? Xiao Chen's face fell and he complained incessantly, I quite like my current appearance. Besides, Qing Menjing and the others only recognize my face. If I were to possess someone else's body and interact with them, it would feel a little weird. Xiao Qin kept whining in his heart. It was not easy for him to reach the peak of the nascent soul realm. Did he have to find a new body to possess and start his cultivation from the beginning? Then wouldn't all the hard work he had done be in vain? Look at the situation and you're still thinking about these useless things. The Elder Heaven Ancestor didn't know whether to laugh or cry, shaking his head. He thought for a while and then sighed, unless someone can help you share a part of the lightning strike's energy, relieving the pressure on your body's recovery mechanism and suppressing the lightning damage. Then you can slowly heal your internal injuries. But I'm lying down and can't move at this moment. Where am I going to find someone? Xiao Qin immediately hung his head dejectedly. Suddenly, he raised his head and asked in bewilderment, that's right, I actually have another question. Elder Heaven Ancestor, it was you, Nethery, and Xiaoma who helped me share the damage, wasn't it? Why didn't it work this time? Xiao Qin suddenly recalled that whenever he received a fatal blow in the past, it was the Elder Heaven Ancestor and the others who helped him. When it was serious, they would be beaten into a dormant state just like the time when he was in the Kuei Mountain sect. But why was it that he was about to die this time, while they were all fine and unscathed? Did they slack off? Kid, what are you thinking? Naturally, Elder Sky knew what Xiao Qin was thinking. He shook his body in agitation and reprimanded, if we didn't help you absorb the damage, you would have died a long time ago. How could you still be standing here talking? It's just that in order to tell you these complicated things, we didn't do our best, so we didn't sleep. You heartless little thing, open your eyes wide and take a good look. Xiao Qin focused his gaze and discovered that the primordial spirits of the Elder Heaven Ancestor, the flames of the underworld, and a little demon were faintly discernible, floating like gossamer threads. They were in a very unstable state and looked like they could disappear at any time. Xiao Qin was a little embarrassed. He touched his nose and apologized, Elder Heaven Ancestor, I'm really sorry, I didn't see clearly before. Shh, don't talk. Before Xiao Qin could finish speaking, the Elder Heaven Ancestor suddenly made a shushing gesture and said vigilantly, that base spirit beast seems to be back. Because the Elder Heaven Ancestor's primordial spirit was too exhausted, he could only release a small range of his divine sense to observe the movements around him. Just now he discovered that something was wrong. Sure enough, as soon as the Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice fell, a rustling sound came from the grass not far away. A pair of green eyes suddenly appeared and stared at Xiao Chen's body. After a while, it carefully moved and slowly approached Xiao Chen's position. Whoosh! The base spirit beast walked out of the grass and came to Xiao Chen's side. It looked down at him from above and complained angrily, useless Xiao Si. You have a body full of negative energy but in the end you shit after being struck by lightning. What a waste of my time. Listening to the base spirit beast's unclear words, Xiao Chen, who was staying in the sea of consciousness, couldn't help but feel angry and amused. He couldn't understand why this fellow lured him here to be struck by lightning. Was it just to watch him make a fool of himself? Something doesn't seem right. The base spirit beast circled around Xiao Chen a few more times and suddenly discovered that he was still breathing weakly. Seeing that Xiao Chen's body was still flashing with blue lightning, his body was charred in several places, and his hair was curled as if it had been burned by irons, the base spirit beast said to itself in surprise, "This fellow doesn't seem to have shit yet? Why is he back to Xiaoxi? Little nethery, little demon, and how much strength can you use now?" Xiao Chen had a brainwave when he heard the base spiritual beast answering its own questions. He suddenly thought of a good idea that might be able to solve the current unfavorable situation. However, he still needed the help of the flame of the underworld and little demon N. Reporting to Master, Little Nethery and I currently have less than 20% of our strength left. I'm afraid we can't fight against that spirit beast. And Little Demon reported honestly with a bitter face. I don't need you to fight against it, you just need to do this. Xiao Chen perfected the idea from beginning to end. The corners of his mouth raised slightly, and he waved his hand confidently to let the two primordial spirits come to his side. Then he whispered a few words to them and revealed his entire plan. Will this really work? That spirit beast has the strength of the venerable realm after all. Master, your method is too childish, isn't it? After listening to Xiao Chen's idea, and Little Demon frowned and couldn't help but raise his doubts. The Elder Heaven Ancestor naturally heard Xiao Chen's plan and also rolled his eyes. However, he was too lazy to pay attention to it. After all, he had no other better way at the moment, so he could only let Xiao Chen try it as a last resort. Whether it's childish or not, we have to give it a try. It's a matter of life and death now. Unless you have a better suggestion, do as I say. Xiao Chen ignored Little Demon's doubts and gave the order with a sullen face. Yes. And Little Demon and the flame of the underworld looked at each other. Naturally, they did not dare to have any objections and nodded in agreement. Even if Xiao Chen was in a half-dead state and was about to die, he was still their master. They could have doubts, but it was absolutely impossible for them to resist. The base spiritual beast circled around Xiao Chen for a while. When it saw that his skin and flesh were gradually charred black and his condition was getting worse, it reckoned that he wouldn't be able to live for much longer. It snorted and turned around to leave, planning to look for other substitutes. Hee. Base spirit beast had not gone far when it suddenly heard a creepy strange laughter coming from behind it. It was startled and almost stamped its hooves. In its shock, it turned around to take a look and discovered that a black mist was slowly rising from Xiao Chen's body. What the hell is this? Out of curiosity, base spirit beast turned around and walked toward Xiao Chen. Its green eyes stared straight at the black mist. It watched as the black mist gradually turned into a human figure, and its eyes, ears, mouth, nose, and limbs were spewing out blue-purple flames. The scene was very strange. Chapter 1241. TSK. You little bastard, you actually hurt my master. You've got guts. The humanoid black fog let out a strange sharp laughter and bared its fangs and claws at the base spiritual beast. The thing that emerged from Xiao Chen's body was the combination of Xiaoma and the flames of the underworld. As they were not sure if they were a match for the base spiritual beast, they only used the method of intimidation for the time being and did not take the initiative to attack immediately. *CK. I didn't expect this kid's body to have such a strange thing. The base spiritual beast stared at the black fog with its big eyes and rubbed its hooves back and forth on the same spot. Under the situation where it could not figure out the opponent's strength, the base spiritual beast did not dare to attack rashly. Moreover, the humanoid black fog's crooked appearance did look a little scary. Little bastard, don't even think about leaving today. I'll use your flesh and blood to pay for my master's life. Seeing that the base spiritual beast was indeed intimidated, the bluish-purple flames on its body immediately sprayed out more vigorously. Its erratic figure suddenly flashed and quickly rushed toward the base spiritual beast. Roar! The base spiritual beast first took a small step back, then shook its body and revealed the strength of a 7th-level martial honor. It roared angrily and jumped up with its huge body. It waved its thick claws and slashed at Xiaoma's body. However, just as the base spiritual beast's claws were about to touch Xiaoma, it heard a swoosh sound and its claws immediately fell into thin air. Xiaoma had disappeared into thin air and disappeared without a trace before its eyes. What the *CK? What's with Jia? Don't tell me you're just trying to scare Silver with your brute strength? The base spiritual beast's attack missed and it landed heavily on the ground helplessly. It looked around the empty forest in confusion and cursed loudly. TSK. Little bastard, don't be happy too early. And little demon's eerie and terrifying laughter sounded again, but this time it was not just one voice, but dozens of different voices in the air at the same time. Bai Zhe was stunned for a moment. It immediately raised its head to look at the sky and saw countless human-shaped black mists floating in mid-air. They were surrounding it, and each of them was like the black mist from before, spitting out bluish-purple flames from all over their bodies. This scene was even stranger than before. Insignificant skill. The Bai Zhe spirit beast thought that it was an illusion created by the humanoid black fog. It growled in disdain, and its eyes suddenly burst out with green light. It scanned the air with rapt attention, trying to distinguish which one was in Xiaoma's real body. Despite that, Bai Zhe was a little puzzled after it scanned through the tens of black shadows. It kicked its hooves and remarked hatefully, "Looks like a monster like you still has some tricks up your sleeves. They're all real. TSK, cut the crap. Since you've injured my master, you can go and die." As soon as the Bai Zhe spirit beast finished speaking, dozens of humanoid black mists descended at the same time. They said the same thing while attacking it from different angles. Clouds of black mist mixed with bluish-purple flames kept shuttling around, surrounding the Bai Zhe spirit beast in the center. The scene was extremely spectacular. Roar, the Bai Zhe spirit beast was not afraid at all. Instead, it let out an excited roar. Looking at the bluish-purple flames that were surging from all directions, it moved its huge body to dodge left and right, twisting and turning, looking quite agile. Not only did it dodge the flame attack, but it also raised its two meaty claws in front of it and waved them at the attacking humanoid black mist, trying to kill them one by one. However, what made Bai Zhe spirit beast feel strange was that every time it successfully tore a combination, it would immediately split into two combinations and continue to attack it. Although the black fog did not cause any substantial damage to the Bai's beast, it was gradually running out of stamina after a few rounds. That being said, it did not panic. Instead, it retreated as it fought, slowly moving in the opposite direction in an attempt to sneak away from the battle. Crack. As it retreated, it suddenly heard the crisp sound of bones breaking. The Bai Zhe spirit beast felt as if its hind leg had stepped on something. However, before it could think about it carefully, a strong electric current traveled along its hind leg and instantly entered its body, almost causing it to pee. Roar, the Bai Zhe spirit beast could not help but let out a cry. It turned its head with difficulty and saw that its hind leg had stepped on Xiao Chen's wrist without any deviation. The electric current that remained in Xiao Chen's body was now surging into its body at an extremely fast speed. At that moment, the Bai Zhe spirit beast finally understood why the humanoid black mist was attacking it. However, it was too late. Its hind leg was firmly attached to Xiao Chen's wrist by the electric current and it could not pull it back even if it wanted to. As more and more electric current surged into its body, the Bai Zhe spirit beast did not even have the strength to cry out. It gradually fell limply to the ground and lay next to Xiao Chen, twitching non-stop. Its snow-white fur was stained with dead leaves and the dust on the ground. It looked very pitiful. Due to the continuous damage caused by the electric current, the Bai Zhe spirit beast had already absorbed a portion of it. Xiao Chen's injuries were finally alleviated. The powerful recovery mechanism was also operating more smoothly. The burnt parts of his body were finally gradually recovering to their original state. Elder Heaven Ancestor, how is it? My idea wasn't bad, right? Since the electric current has been diverted, can I continue to use this body? Seeing that the burnt parts of his body were slowly recovering to white, Xiao Chen in his sea of consciousness was very pleased. He asked the Elder Heaven Ancestor with a grin. Not bad indeed. You really have a lot of clever ideas, kid. The Elder Heaven Ancestor was not stingy with his praise. However, before Xiao Chen could speak, he added, "But don't be too happy too early. This matter is not over yet." What do you mean not over yet? Don't tell me there's going to be more lightning strikes? Xiao Chen was instantly shocked. If he was struck by lightning again, he would really be finished. That's not it. The Elder Heaven Ancestor shook his head and solemnly instructed, "I've already checked your condition. Although your body has recovered by about 30% to 40%, the injuries were too severe. Even your strength has regressed a lot. Once you've taken over your body, remember to immediately use your vitality to speed up the recovery of the damaged parts so that it doesn't cause a second injury." Oh, so that's how it is. I understand now. Xiao Chen nodded in understanding. He closed his eyes and circulated his mental cultivation method. Gradually, his primordial spirit and body became one. What the F***ck? As soon as he took over his body, Xiao Chen blurted out a curse. Chapter 1242. The moment Xiao Chen took over his body, he felt his meridians suddenly convulse violently. His internal organs were in turmoil and he almost couldn't catch his breath. It turned out that although the lightning on the surface of Xiao Chen's body had been guided out, there was still a lot of electricity left in his body. It was shuttling through his meridians and constantly stimulating his internal organs, which was why such a situation occurred. The twitching feeling was thousands of times stronger than the usual electric shock. It almost made Xiao Chen, who had just woken up, faint again. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain. He immediately mobilized his yuan qi, wanting to disperse the electric current in his body. However, what surprised Xiao Chen was that every time his yuan qi was about to touch the electric current, the traces of lightning would suddenly disappear without a trace. Not long after, it would drill out from another place. Xiao Chen tried a few times, but he was unable to capture those electric currents. It was as if they had a mind of their own, continuously playing a game of hide and seek in his meridians. On the contrary, it caused Xiao Chen's body to twitch from the electricity. That kind of numb, itchy and painful feeling made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Ku, I don't believe I can't deal with you. The more Xiao Chen chased, the angrier he got. He cursed angrily and mobilized all the remaining yuan qi in his body. It gathered towards the electric current from all directions and drove it into his dantian. He planned to destroy it all at once. The electric current was chased by the yuan qi and had nowhere to escape. It could only gradually gather in his dantian. Countless tiny electric currents mixed with each other and gradually fused into an egg-sized sphere in Xiao Chen's dantian. Its body was shining with a silvery white light. Although he was curious about this silvery white sphere, Xiao Chen knew that it was not a suitable time to observe it. He continued to mobilize his yuan qi and wrapped it around the sphere. Then he tried to slowly devour it. It was unknown whether it was the final radiance of a setting sun or a desperate attempt. The silvery white sphere was unwilling to be eroded by the yuan qi and was struggling to resist. However, it was just a small ball of lightning after all. In the face of the powerful yuan qi attack, the silver white ball finally lost its luster, and its size became smaller and smaller. It looked like it was about to be completely devoured. Watching the small ball gradually disappear, Xiao Chen let out a sigh of relief. He was extremely glad that he had escaped death. But at this moment, the silver white sphere that had collapsed to the size of a grain of rice suddenly emitted an incomparably resplendent and dazzling light. Then, a violent explosion burst out from the inside, completely blowing up the vitality around it. Ah! An intense pain instantly spread from his dantian to his whole body. Xiao Chen let out a miserable howl and almost fainted from the pain. Fortunately, Xiao Chen was at the peak of the original infant stage, and his dantian was as hard as steel and cement. Otherwise, he would have been crippled by the explosion. Fortunately, the pain came and went quickly. It didn't take long for Xiao Chen to recover from the pain. However, before Xiao Chen could do anything, he suddenly felt that in his dantian that had been blown up, a thick wave of yuan qi was born out of thin air. This wave of essence was even more robust and pure than the essence that Xiao Chen had circulated previously. Furthermore, after it left his dantian, that wave of essence immediately split into countless strands of essence that were as thin as hair. They followed his meridians and madly circulated a great cycle. From a boiling and whistling sound, they gradually calmed down and then gathered in his dantian once again. Boom! Just when all the yuan qi was gathered together, Xiao Chen heard a familiar roar in his body. The barrier of the profound ascension stage was instantly broken, and he was promoted from the peak of the original infant stage to the first level of the profound ascension stage. Leveled up? Xiao Chen opened his eyes in astonishment, looked at his body in disbelief and muttered to himself. Elder Heaven Ancestor was floating in Xiao Chen's sea of consciousness at this time. He also had a dumbfounded look on his face. He sighed with mixed feelings. Kid, you are really... Sigh, comparing yourself to others is really annoying. Xiao Chen lowered his head to inspect his body. Apart from his tattered clothes, his body had completely recovered. The injuries from the lightning, the injuries from falling from a high altitude, and the wounds from the tree branches had all disappeared. His skin was fair and smooth as if it was new. Even his wrist, which had been broken by the Bay's spirit beast, had completely recovered. Sitting up and waving his fist, Xiao Chen asked in surprise, Elder Heaven Ancestor, am I really a profound ascension stage master now? Well, although I can't believe it like you, you have indeed broken through. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded a little sour. Xiao Chen immediately climbed up and took a deep breath. He felt refreshed. It seemed that all the injuries on his body had indeed recovered. Except for his clothes that were burned by the thunder and lightning, there was no other abnormality. Scratching his head, Xiaochen was puzzled about his breakthrough. He asked Elder Heaven Ancestor again, "Elder Heaven Ancestor, what happened just now? How did I suddenly break through?" "I'm not too sure about the specific situation." Elder Heaven Ancestor returned to his normal mood, but he was also a little puzzled. He could only analyze the situation according to the actual situation. "I guess maybe you were lucky." After the residual thunder and lightning in your body mixed with the original Yuan Qi, it actually refined a new Yuan Qi, so you broke through the barrier in a short period of time and upgraded to the strength of the profound ascension stage. There's actually such a good thing? Xiaochen raised his head, looked at the forest shrouded in fog and murmured, "Do you think if I get struck by lightning again will I continue to upgrade?" "I can't be sure about that. If you are interested you can try again," Elder Heaven Ancestor said leisurely, "but don't blame me for not reminding you in advance that Baizé Spirit Beast is not lightly injured. If you are struck by lightning again, there will be nothing else to help you absorb the electric current." "Right. Baizé Spirit Beast." Xiaochen came back to his senses and remembered what had just happened. He quickly called back in Little Demon and the fire of the underworld who were still floating outside. He praised them a few words and then kept them back into the sea of consciousness. Then Xiaochen looked at the Baizé Spirit Beast that had fallen to the ground and was twitching all over. He said to himself, "This damn thing, it's really tough. It actually didn't get electrocuted directly. I really don't know why it lured me here. Is it just to see me get struck by lightning? Isn't it too free?" After pondering for a moment, an idea came to Xiaochen's mind. He slowly leaned down and put his hand on the forehead of the Baizé Spirit Beast. Chapter 1243. As soon as he came into contact with the Baizé Beast's skin, Xiaochen felt an electric current that fluctuated between strong and weak, stimulating the center of his palm. Thus, he immediately activated his primordial qi and absorbed all the electric current in the Baizé Beast's body, then dissolved it in his own body. This time, Xiaochen was not knocked down by the electric current. He was still standing steadily. The electric current that was sucked in by him obediently circulated around his body. Then it silently disintegrated in his dantian. Like a clay ox entering the sea, there was not the slightest ripple. However, although he had absorbed quite a lot of electric current, Xiaochen was not able to continue leveling up. It seemed that this trick did not work every time. Whoa! The Baizé Beast felt that the pressure on its body had lessened by quite a bit. It let out a low cry and woke up. It opened its green eyes and glanced at Xiaochen with a confused look. "Alright, stop pretending to be a dead dog. Hurry up and stand up. Otherwise, I'll let you have a taste of being struck by lightning again." Xiaochen stood up and condensed an electric ball technique. He raised it above the Baizé Beast's head, then raised his leg and kicked it. He raised his eyebrows slightly and threatened impatiently. Seeing the crackling electric ball in Xiaochen's hand, the Baizé Beast trembled in fear. It used all its strength to support its huge body with its 4 legs, then lowered its head slightly and let out a low whimper as if it was showing weakness. "I know you can speak human language. Don't be like a dog always howling." Xiaochen laughed coldly and kicked it again. The Baizé Beast was slightly stunned. It then remembered that its mumbling earlier might have been heard by this person. It could only rub its hind legs helplessly and said, That's right, I'm a spiritual beast that has cultivated for a few hundred years. Can you not always compare me to a dog? I can easily stomp a bunch of spicy low-level creatures to death." Although the Baizé Beast knew that Xiaochen was much more powerful than it was not afraid of Xiaochen at all. It was only curious as to why this fellow was able to display his strength in the honorable realm like it did and was not suppressed to the level of a perfected king. Could it be that this fellow was also a spiritual beast? "Oh, I didn't expect you to have such pride." Xiaochen shrugged and said disdainfully, "What's so great about spiritual beasts? I have a cultivation dog as well. I'll bring it to the honorable realm for a breakthrough another day. When that happens you can come and watch. When it evolves into the universe's super honorable realm dog, it will be able to kill you in no time." "Your dog's name sure is long," the Baizé Beast muttered and waved its front paw. "Spicy, all right? When it comes, you can give me a call to tell me to come and watch. If there's nothing else, I'll be leaving first. See you later." Once it finished speaking, the Baizé Beast flapped its body, turned around and burrowed into the forest. It was ready to take this opportunity to leave this place. Come back. Are you not taking me seriously or what? Xiao Chen furrowed his brows and immediately threw the thunder ball in his hand, smashing it on the ground in front of the Bey's spiritual beast. Boom. The thunderball technique directly blasted a hole in the ground. The Bey's spirit beast trembled all over. Only now did it understand that Xiao Chen was serious this time. It hurriedly turned around and obediently walked back, returning to Xiao Chen unwillingly. Next, I'll ask you a question and you'll answer it. Xiao Chen nodded his head in satisfaction. He said slowly, "You'd better be more honest. If I find out that you're lying, you should know what the consequences will be." Once he finished speaking, Xiao Chen condensed another electric ball and injected a bit of vitality into it. The electric ball instantly expanded by several times and hung above the Baize beast. He then made a you-know expression at it. The Baize beast immediately lowered its head and acted as if it was obediently waiting for someone to order it around. Xiao Chen asked calmly, "You've spent so much effort to lure me to this lousy place. What's your purpose? Why did you attack those girls earlier?" "Nothing much, I just thought it was fun. Plus, you guys are weaker so I wanted to bully you." The Baize beast's saliva flew everywhere as it tried to bluff. Suddenly, it heard a crackling sound that was getting closer. It raised its head and realized that Xiao Chen had placed the electric ball on its head. It could almost feel the electric current burning the hair on its head. The Baize beast was so scared that its legs turned to jelly. It immediately changed its expression and explained in all seriousness, "I was just joking. I actually wanted to catch a few silvers filled with spiritual chi and come here to be struck by lightning. I want to see what happens to me." "What did you say?" "I think you've been struck dumb by the lightning. You're going around capturing people for this lousy matter?" Xiao Chen obviously didn't believe the Baize beast's nonsense. However, before he figured out the reason, he didn't want to rashly kill the Baize beast. An idea flashed through Xiao Chen's mind. He simply raised the electric ball in front of the Baize beast and said in a low voice patiently, "Stop bullshitting. I don't have time to listen to your nonsense. Hurry up and tell me the truth." Seeing the electric ball in front of it, the Baize beast was so scared that its eyes almost turned into a cross. It anxiously defended itself, "I'm lying. That's indeed the case. This is because this is a secret place in the Four Venerable One's secret realms. There are many treasures of heaven and earth here. However, the lightning tribulation often happens here. Furthermore, those lightning bolts don't strike normal silvers or animals. They only strike Xiaoxi who has zero chi on his body. So you might as well find someone with spiritual chi and try it out. Let's see what happens after you're struck." Xiao Chen's expression darkened as he asked. The Bey's spirit beast blinked its green eyes and nodded obediently. "Go to hell. Your body is full of spiritual chi. Why don't you try the lightning tribulation yourself? Instead, you want to find innocent people to experiment on? Tell me, do you have nothing better to do?" Xiao Chen kicked the Baize beast fiercely and scolded it angrily. He didn't think that he would become this damn thing's test subject. If it wasn't for the fact that his life was hanging by a thread and he had the idea to share the damage with the Baize beast, perhaps Xiao Chen would already be a wandering spirit by now. "I'm scared. What if the lightning tribulation strikes my sh*t? Of course I'll look for Xiaoxi first." The Baize beast did not feel guilty at all. Instead, it spoke confidently. "I should have struck you long ago." Xiao Chen glared at the Baize beast angrily. When he turned his head, he saw a few fragments lying on the ground not far from him. They looked quite familiar. "How can you, a Xiaoxi, speak like that?" The Baize beast was about to protest when Xiao Chen yelled angrily, "Don't speak. Stay there obediently and don't move. Otherwise, I'll electrocute you." Chapter 1244. Xiao Chen left behind the silent Baize spiritual beast and walked closer to the broken pieces. He lowered his head to take a look and realized that his flying sword had been shattered by the lightning. It had already broken into a few pieces and had fallen to the ground. There was no spiritual energy left and only a few pieces of metal were left. It looked like it could no longer be reforged. Xiao Chen sighed as he picked up the fragments of the flying sword with a pained expression. He could not help but feel enraged. He turned around and glared coldly at Baize. "This young master spent a lot of effort to obtain this flying sword. I didn't expect it to be destroyed just like that because of your strange curiosity." "What? You're blaming me for this?" Baize was stunned for a moment and immediately complained, "You were the one who wanted to chase after me. Don't you know that it's easy to get struck by lightning when you're at a high place?" "I don't care about that," Xiao Chen said fiercely. Unless you can compensate me with something of equal value, don't even think about leaving this place alive. Bai Zhe snorted and hesitated for a while. It looked like it was in a difficult position. What do you want me to compensate you with? I only have 4 spiritual beasts. If I don't have anything else, you're making things difficult for spiritual beasts. Oh, is that so? Xiao Qin stroked his chin as he walked back. He circled around the Bai's spirit beast twice and sized it up with great interest. What do you want? Bai Zhe felt uncomfortable under Xiao Qian's gaze. It stomped its feet a few times. Don't have any improper thoughts about me. I have 4 male spiritual beasts. You're quite imaginative. Xiao Qian almost spat out. He raised his eyebrows and said, I see that your legs are quite agile. You can run like a wisp of smoke and you don't even pant when you climb the stairs. I might as well let you replace the flying sword and be my mount. Originally, Xiao Qian didn't want to use Bai Zhe as his mount. After all, it was a bit too big and it couldn't be carried around like the flying sword. The most important thing was that it had such a terrifying appearance. If he were to run around the streets with it, it would be too shocking. If he were to accidentally bump into a cowardly cultivator and scare them to death, it would be troublesome. But now that the flying sword had been struck by lightning, Xiao Qian couldn't make another one in a short period of time. This venerable realm was so big. If he ran by foot, even if Xiao Qian had reached the profound ascension stage, it would take him a long time to run. Not to mention he would have to carry Qing Menjing and the others who had just reached the venerable realm. After pondering for a while, Xiao Qian could only choose to temporarily use the Bai's spiritual beast as a replacement. In any case, it was so big that many people could sit on its back. It should not be as cramped as the flying sword. What did you say? After all, I have 4 high-end spirit beasts that have cultivated for several hundred years. Why would they be mounts for a little brat like you? The Bai Zhe spirit beast almost jumped up as it asked in shock. Xiao Qian patted its head and smiled. Don't worry, I have money. I promise I won't mistreat you. I'll have enough fish and meat every day. You can make as much as you want. No, I'm a vegetarian. I'm not interested in fish and meat. Don't waste your time, I won't. Bai Zhe shook its head and refused. It didn't want to be ridden by a human. That would be too embarrassing. But before Bai Zhe could finish, Xiao Qian forced the electric ball in front of it again. He sneered, very well, since you don't want to, there's no point in keeping you. You. What are you going to do? Bai Zhe tried its best to shrink its neck. It wanted to get as far away from the electric ball as possible. Your entire body is a treasure. After you die, I'll take your fur, your inner core and your... Xiao Qian paused on purpose. He then continued with a sinister smile. I'll sell the spiritual beast whip. The money I earn from selling it should be enough for me to make another flying sword. The Bai's beast was so frightened that it began to stutter. Especially when it heard that Xiao Qian wanted to sell its whip for money, it even subconsciously clamped its hind legs together. The fur on its entire face was trembling, and it was obviously terrified. It had no idea what to do. Don't be like this and that. Have you thought it through? Actually, I still prefer the original flying sword. If it wasn't for the lightning that you attracted and smashed it into pieces, I wouldn't even bother to use a stupid spiritual beast like you as a mount. Xiao Qian pretended to be helpless as he spoke with melancholy. You. Bai Zhe was so angry that its body trembled. Stupid? I'm a 7th level martial honor spiritual beast. How dare this guy use these 2 words to describe me? How despicable. Isn't that so? Look at you, I know you're useless. I bet you eat a lot too. Sooner or later I'll be broke. Xiao Qian teased. He waved the thunderball technique in front of the Bai's beast again and asked impatiently, stop wasting time. Have you made up your mind? If you can't, let me know and we'll start dissecting. Bai Zhe's spirit beast really wanted to reject him with a backbone, but its strength was not as high as the fellow in front of it. If it rejected him, it would not be able to escape even if it wanted to. Not to mention that it would not be able to leave a complete corpse, even that part of it would be sold. Bai Zhe lowered its head and pondered for a moment. Then it nodded dejectedly and said, all right, I agree. However, we have to make a pact. I'm only responsible for being your mount. I won't do any dirty work. If one day you're crippled or disappear, I won't be your slave anymore. After all, high-level spiritual beasts like me will only follow the strong. No problem. However, I don't think such a day will come. Xiao Qian shrugged his shoulders and carelessly stroked the Bai's spiritual beast's fur as he said, just follow me and work hard. Maybe one day, I'll be lucky and catch another beautiful female spiritual beast. When that time comes, I'll make her your wife. Who cares? How can a high-level spiritual beast like me find a trash spiritual beast as a partner? Bai Zhe immediately snorted and protested, haha, I've already agreed. Shouldn't you take that ball away? It's scary. Oh, I forgot. Xiao Qin snapped his fingers and kept the electric ball in front of Bai Zhe. I think you did it on purpose. Bai Zhe mumbled softly, then it asked, where are we going next? By the way, what's your name? Oh, my name is Xiao Qin. You can call me Master. However, don't talk when there are outsiders around. You might scare them. Xiao Qin waved his hand. Chapter 1245. Looking at the withered forest that was shrouded in fog, Xiao Qin asked Bai Zhe excitedly, you said that there's a paradise in front of us and there are many treasures of heaven and earth, right? Where's the exact location? Hurry up and bring me there. Follow me, it's less than 200 meters ahead and it'll be 4. Bai Zhe ignored Xiao Qin's suggestion to call him master. It didn't even see this little brat as its master. Instead, it strode forward with its hooves. Xiao Qin didn't really care. After all, it didn't matter if he called him master or not. He really didn't care about that. As he watched Bai Zhe walk forward, he took off his tattered jacket and sat on its back. Then he stretched his body and leisurely swung his legs. Bai Zhe suddenly felt a weight on its back. It immediately understood what had happened. Although it was displeased, it could only endure it for the time being. It secretly planned to find an opportunity to show Xiao Qin who was the boss. After riding Bai Zhe out of the withered forest, Xiao Qin's face suddenly revealed an extremely shocked expression. It wasn't because of the lightning tribulation or other dangers, but because the scene in front of him was too dreamy. It was so dreamy that Xiao Qin almost thought that he was in a dream. Countless treasures of heaven and earth were like weeds, growing luxuriantly on the surrounding land. There were all kinds of dazzling. Many medicinal herbs with conflicting natures grew together like good brothers. Some of the more precious herbs didn't even have a place to grow and could only climb up the rocks on the side. Xiao Qin gulped and immediately jumped down. He quickly rolled up his jacket into the shape of a bag and began to plunder the treasures of heaven and earth. There were some medicinal herbs that he couldn't name, but after being reminded by the elder heaven ancestor, Xiao Qin was able to recognize quite a few of them. After plundering for a while, Xiao Qin found a pattern and simply picked the precious and rare ones. After filling his bag to the brim, he was still unwilling to give up and continued to stuff the heavenly materials and earthly treasures into his bag. On the other hand, Bai Zhe's behavior was a little strange. It looked nervous and kept looking left and right like a thief. From time to time, it would urge Xiao Qin to hurry up, as if it was very afraid of this place. Hey, what's wrong with you? You worked so hard to trick me to come here, but when we finally arrived, you didn't do anything and just stood there like a fool. What's the point of you coming here? Xiao Qin filled the bag to the brim, then straightened his back and glared at Bai Zhe as he spoke snappily. What the F***ck? Do you think I don't want treasures? Both of us have so much negative energy on us. What if we get struck by lightning? Is it wrong for me to be careful? Bai Zhe was not to be outdone, so it yelled at Xiao Qin at the top of its voice. I think you're really stupid. Xiao Qin was both angry and amused at the same time. He could not help but ask, since you know that this place is dangerous, why don't you take what you want and leave immediately? Are you going to stand here and wait to be struck by lightning? Xiao Qin was speechless towards the base spiritual beast. There was no one else like this simple-minded yet powerful fellow. It was probably because it had stayed in the venerable realm for too long that its brain wasn't working well and its intelligence had been eaten away. Oh, you're right. The spirit beast Bai Zhe nodded as if it was deep in thought. All of a sudden, it took a step forward and quickly charged into the bushes that were filled with rare treasures. The bushes swayed for a moment, then a poochie sound was heard. At first, Xiao Qin looked at its figure in confusion. The more he looked, the more shocked he became. This fellow actually opened its bloody mouth and started to eat the bushes. Looking at how it was wolfing down the food, it seemed like it wanted to eat even the ground. Xiao Qin watched in a daze as Baze devoured the entire patch of grass, not even sparing the weeds. His jaw nearly dropped in shock as he stood there, unable to say a single word. Burp. Bai Zhe let out a long breath. It licked its lips as if it had not had enough and said in satisfaction, Not bad, it's delicious. I didn't come here in vain. Xiao Qin looked at the barren wasteland and was puzzled. Could it be that this idiot went through so much trouble to come here just to eat a big meal? Was there nothing else? Even if it was to find some rare herbs to increase its rank, it was not going to do anything like that? Why are you standing there like an idiot? You're just standing there in a daze. Let's leave this place quickly. I have a feeling that we're going to face another lightning tribulation soon. The Bay's spirit beast shook its head as it walked back. When it saw Xiao Chen's dumbfounded expression, it used its front hooves to gently kick his leg and urged him impatiently. Oh. Xiao Chen had yet to come back to his senses. He subconsciously jumped onto Bai's back and did not forget to tighten the bag around him. Let's go. Bai Zhe immediately took light steps and quickly escaped from this treasured land. You came here to eat those natural treasures? Xiao Chen asked in disbelief as he sat on the Bai's spirit beast's back. Of course. Why else do you think I came here? Do you really think I'm an idiot? Bai Zhe did not stop and nodded as if it was a matter of course. Boom. Just as Xiao Chen finished speaking, a deafening rumble came from not far behind him. Bai Zhe stopped in its tracks and turned around to look at where it was previously. It shook its body proudly and said, "Look, it's a good thing we ran fast. Otherwise we would have been struck by lightning. I'm so smart." Xiao Chen was almost petrified. This spiritual beast was simply an amusing fighter jet. It had risked its life and racked its brains to lure the humans here just to eat those heavenly treasures. Xiao Chen secretly made up his mind. It seemed like he had to find an opportunity to teach it a lesson and enlighten it. Otherwise it would be killed by its foolish behavior sooner or later. Bai Zhe moved very quickly. After the time it took for a joss stick to burn, it brought Xiao Chen back to the place where Xin Jingshan and the others had gone into seclusion. Xiao Chen jumped off the beast's back and searched around the seclusion area for a long time. However, he could not find any traces of the women. Song Qingshu and Hong Laosan's blood were still on the ground, proving that they had been there. However, other than that there were no other clues. Xiao Chen stood in the seclusion area and looked around. Then he sighed deeply with a melancholic expression. Sigh. It was not easy for him to meet Goddess Shen. In the end he did not even have the time to chat with her. He did not even have the time to be tender and sweet. She had disappeared again. He guessed that she had followed Hong Zhu and the others back to the Hong family. After all, Song Qingshu and Hong Laosan's injuries were quite serious. If they were not treated in time, it was very likely that they would die. Chapter 1246. Although Xiao Chen didn't care about Song Qingshu and third young master Hong's lives, Hong Zhu and the others naturally wouldn't abandon them. Goddess Shen was so kind she would definitely go back with them. Seeing how disappointed Xiao Chen was as he walked back, Bai Zhe asked curiously, "Hey Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen, what's your relationship with those girls? Also, who were the two idiots who attacked the puppets? Could it be that you stole their wives so they're here to seek revenge? They're so weak they definitely won't be able to defeat you. Why are you asking so many useless questions? I say, as a spirit beast, why are you so gossipy?" Xiao Chen rolled his eyes and retorted snappily. "Can't I be curious? You four cultivators are really stingy." Bai Zhe snorted through its nostrils. Xiao Chen looked back at the seclusion area that was empty. Since Goddess Shen and the others had already left, he should go back first. Once he left the venerable realm, he would go to the Hong family to look for them. "Let's go, we'll go to another place to pick them up. Alright, let's get some wild game to bring back." Xiao Chen rode on Bai's back and patted its neck as he gave an order. "What? We still have to go somewhere else? My legs are about to break." Bai Zhe moved its feet and grumbled unhappily. "Just leave when I tell you to. Why are you talking so much? Are you a chatterbox?" Xiao Chen patted its head again. The Bai's spirit beast snorted angrily and slowly walked forward. Xiao Chen frowned. Just as he was about to fly into a rage, he suddenly remembered something. This Bai's spirit beast had thick limbs and a sturdy body. It looked fierce and ferocious. Furthermore, its eyes were a deep green and flickered with a frightening light. It was obvious that it was not a good person. If he were to ride it and suddenly appear in front of Cheng Menjing Jiamuzhen and the others, he reckoned that they would be scared to death. After pondering for a moment, Xiao Chen decided to transform the appearance of the Bai's beast into a white horse. Apart from the fact that the white horse was slightly larger, there was nothing strange about it. Instead, it made Xiao Chen's red lips and white teeth look very handsome. "What did you do to the doll?" Bai Zhe suddenly felt its vision blur. It immediately sensed that Xiao Chen had done something to it, but it did not know the specifics, so it asked. "Oh, nothing much. I just made you look like a horse so that you won't scare other people when you go out," Xiao Chen explained lightly. F***ck. I have 4 high-grade spiritual beasts, and you actually turn me into a horse? Who would want to see that stupid look? Hurry up and bring me back. Bai Zhe was instantly enraged and shouted angrily. This base beast seemed to be very concerned about its appearance. However, when it looked down, it realized that it still looked the same. It couldn't help but feel puzzled. Since only other people can see it, it doesn't matter if you don't like it. Hurry up and go. I'm in a hurry. Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered with its protest. He squeezed the horse's belly and signaled it to move forward. All right. After taking 2 steps, Xiao Chen spoke again. In the future you won't be a base beast in front of other people. Since you're a horse now, I'll call you Grass Mud Horse for convenience. No, absolutely not. The base spirit beast almost jumped and it roared furiously. I'll tolerate it if you make me look like a horse. But the name Sijia. Actually it's not too bad. As Bai Zhe roared, its aura weakened. This was because it suddenly saw a sizzling electric ball hanging in front of its eyes. The terrifying memory of being electrocuted immediately surged into its mind, causing it to be unable to resist at all. Feeling helpless, Bai Zhe could only curse a few times. It forcefully suppressed the anger in its heart and galloped in the direction that Xiao Chen had pointed. While it was running, the base spirit beast even played a few tricks. It purposely chose to travel through the dense forest at a fast speed, and from time to time, it would perform a few difficult moves such as sliding and drifting to the side, and making sudden stops and turns, all so that it could shake Xiao Chen off its back. Bai Zhe felt that even if it couldn't kill Xiao Chen, it would at least cripple him. It was even willing to watch him fall on his face. However, it was disappointed in the end. No matter how it twisted and ran, Xiao Chen was like a statue that was fixed on its back. He did not move an inch and was not affected at all. Instead, it was Bai Zhe who almost crashed into a tree due to its lack of control over its direction. Feeling helpless, Bai Zhe could only temporarily give up on its mischief. Since this trick was useless, it could only wait for a suitable opportunity to take revenge in the future. For now, it would just have to endure it. Sister Menjing, why hasn't Xiao Chen's husband returned after such a long time? Could something have happened to him? Tian Saoring asked dejectedly as she stared at the endless fog outside the seclusion area. A child's words carry no harm. Cheng Menjing glared at Tian Saoring and scolded, "What are you talking about? Xiao Chen is so powerful, of course he wouldn't have met with an accident. He just ran a little further away and didn't make it in time. Sigh, Sister Saoring is about to starve to death." Tian Saoring pouted and rubbed her stomach pitifully. "I hope that Xiao Chen's husband will bring back some wild game and treat my stomach well." Eat. You only know how to eat." Cheng Menjing was truly angered to death by Tian Saoring. She couldn't help but stretch out her hand to pinch Tian Saoring's chubby cheeks. Panting with rage, she lectured, "It's not like you don't know how dangerous the Venerable One's secret realm is. Perhaps Xiao Chen is in trouble? Can't you just bear with it?" "Ouch. That hurts, Sister Menjing, let go of me." Sister Saoring knows she's wrong. After struggling to break free from Cheng Menjing's clutches, Tian Saoring covered her face and sat on the side, feeling wronged. She muttered, "And you said that I'm a child's words carry no harm. You're talking nonsense too. Xiao Chen's husband is a mutant, he can handle any kind of trouble." Cheng Menjing looked at Tian Saoring's innocent face and sighed softly. Truth be told, young Miss Cheng was also very worried about Xiao Chen's safety. Earlier, everyone had finished consolidating their cultivation bases. Originally they thought that they could relax a little. Unexpectedly, they encountered some cultivators who wanted to snatch their seclusion location. Although everyone had broken through to the Honored One's realm, their strength was still suppressed to the full-phase Monarch realm. Moreover, they were outnumbered. Therefore they could only choose to hide in the seclusion area and activate their defensive measures. They could only rely on the seclusion area's defensive measures to defend themselves. Chapter 1247. Seeing that there was no hope of snatching the treasure, the cultivators could only guard the area for a while before leaving resentfully. However, just as everyone heaved a sigh of relief and thought that the danger was over, a few ferocious beasts appeared out of nowhere and glared at the people in the seclusion area. One of the ferocious beasts even stretched out its claws and scratched at the barrier of the seclusion area in an attempt to destroy the protective measures. Fortunately, the barrier was sturdy enough that it did not succeed. However, it still gave Cheng Menjing and the rest a good scare. Seeing that the ferocious beasts tried a few times and finally returned to the forest in vain, the group persisted for a while longer before they stopped circulating their mental cultivation techniques and relaxed a little. However, while the others could relax a little, Qing Minjing did not dare to let down her guard. She was the only cultivator in the group, so she naturally took on the responsibility of releasing her divine sense to observe the movements in the surroundings so that she could warn the group at any time. Previously, when the cultivators and the ferocious beasts attacked, it was because of Qing Minjing's warning that they could activate the protective measures in time to protect the group. Don't be too anxious, Xiao Qin should be back soon. I think he might have lost his way. After all, the Venerable One's secret realm is very large. Coupled with the thick fog, it's normal for him to be unable to find his way back. Jia Muzhen smiled and eased the atmosphere. Just as Qing Minjing was about to speak, her divine sense suddenly detected a movement not far away. She immediately waved her hand and signaled, "Everyone be careful. There's movement in the forest on the left. Quickly circulate your mental cultivation techniques and activate the protective measures." The group was already used to Qing Minjing giving orders and trusted her early warning. Naturally, they did not dare to be negligent and sat down cross-legged. Not long after, they entered a state of cultivation. Dong. Just as everyone closed their eyes and concentrated on circulating their mental cultivation techniques, a crisp knocking sound suddenly came from the barrier of the seclusion area. Qing Minjing was so frightened that she trembled. She did not dare to relax and continued to circulate her mental cultivation method. Then she opened her eyes slightly and looked over. Outside the retreat, Xiao Qin was smiling and riding on a big white horse. He was holding a few hairs in his left hand and a few stones in his right hand. He was throwing them one by one at the retreat. However, every stone was bounced off by the protective measures and fell to the ground with a thud. Xiao Qin. Qing Minjing stood up in surprise and joy. Her worried heart was finally at ease. She couldn't help but complain, "Why did you throw stones at us? Can't you just say something? You almost scared me to death." The others also heard Qing Minjing shout and immediately opened their eyes. When they saw Xiao Qin standing in front of them with a smile, they all stood up happily. Seeing that the defensive measures of the retreat had been lifted, Qing Minjing walked in front of Xiao Qin and said with a sullen face, "Really? He just hunted a few hares. How could he be gone for so long? Did he really get lost? Or did he go into the hare's nest? Where did he get this big white horse?" "It's a long story." Xiao Qin jumped off the horse's back and rubbed Qing Minjing's head. Then he smiled and looked around at the crowd that was surging over. He pressed his hands together and said, "I know you guys are starving. Let's take care of these rabbits first. Let's talk while we roast them. After that, we can eat them." After asking everyone to pick up some wood around, Xiao Qin quickly made a fire. Then he put the cooked hares on it and roasted them. Everyone sat around the fire and listened to Xiao Qin's brief description of the previous encounter. "You met Jingxian? Shouldn't she be cultivating in the martial arts world? How could she appear here?" Qing Minjing asked in astonishment as she flipped through the rabbit meat on the rack. She and Xin Jingxian had been best friends for many years. After not seeing each other for a year, she often thought about her. Now that she suddenly heard news of her, she was naturally very concerned. "I'm not too sure about the specific reason, but I know that she came here to break through to the Venerable Realm. After that, she should be going to participate in a sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world or something." Xiao Qin shook his head and explained what he already knew. As for the purpose of Xin Jingxian and Hongzhu's group, Xiao Qin was still confused. He only faintly felt that the Hong and Song families were not as simple as they seemed. In particular, Hongzhu's vague mention of the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world made him feel even more uneasy. Usually the so-called sacrificial rites would require one to bring things to offer as a sacrifice, and one would definitely have to pay a huge price. Especially this kind of sacrificial rites that involved living people, it was even more ominous, and the result was very likely to be death. The more Xiao Qin thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He secretly regretted it. If he had known earlier, he would have left with Xin Jingxian at that time. He could not have left her alone there and gone back with Hongzhu and the others. "Xiao Qin, I feel that there is something wrong with the sacrificial ceremony you mentioned." Qing Minjing took a bite of the rabbit meat. After thinking for a while, she frowned and said, "How about this? We will leave here now and return to the inner martial arts world. While we are at it, we will inquire about the location of the Hong and Song families. Then we will find them and bring Jingxian back to the Jia family. I don't want her to encounter any danger. Yes, that's what I plan to do. Xiaoqin nodded. Once everyone has filled their stomachs, we will pack up as soon as possible and prepare to leave. Since everyone had already broken through to the martial honor realm, there was no point in staying in the honor realm. Xiaoqin did not want to make an irreversible mistake because of a moment of hesitation. Husband Xiaoqin, is this big white horse really the base spiritual beast that you mentioned? Tian Souring's mouth was full of grease and there was even a roasted rabbit leg in his mouth. He stood up and curiously circled the base spiritual beast twice, carefully sizing it up. The base spiritual beast was originally a little unhappy. Earlier, Xiaoqin had introduced it too little and did not highlight its true abilities. Now that someone was interested in it, it immediately straightened its body and wanted Tian Souring to see how powerful it was. Sister Soury, I think. Tian Soury took 2 steps back and curled his lips. It seems a little silly. It doesn't have the might and dominance of a spirit beast at all. Nay nay. Bai Zai's hair stood on end. It wanted to roar a few times to scare Tian Sour, but it didn't expect that its roar would sound like that of an ordinary colt. It wasn't threatening at all. It could even understand human language? What's wrong? You're not happy just because I said a few words? Tian Soran wolfed down the rabbit leg and threw the bones on the ground. Then he wiped his oily hands on the white marsh beast's body. This time the Bai Zai spirit beast collapsed even more. It was so angry that it jumped back and forth a few times, calling out continuously. Although it was able to get rid of the oil stains by shaking its fur, Tian Surin's actions were too humiliating. Oh no, that's too insulting to spirit beasts. Chapter 1248. Tian Suruin and Bai Zai stared at each other for a long time. Tian Suruin wiped her mouth and said, Husband Xiaoqin, why don't we roast this spirit beast and eat it? Sister Suruin has never tasted a spirit beast in her life. All right, Suruin. Don't compete with that stupid spirit beast. Xiaoqin shook his head. Seeing that everyone was almost done eating and cleaning up, he walked over and carried Tian Suruin onto the horse's back. Then he sent Qing Menjing and the other girls up as well. After the girls sat down, Xiaoqin called out to Jiao Muzhen and the Jiao Renzhong, You guys come up too. My flying sword was smashed by the lightning, so I can only use this stupid guy as a means of transportation. You guys just have to make do. Huff huff huff. Bai Zai was so angry that it almost rolled its eyes. However, in front of Xiaoqin, it didn't dare to flare up. It could only exhale a few hot breaths from its nostrils to express its dissatisfaction. However, Xiaoqin directly ignored its silent protest. He jumped onto the horse's back first and sat behind the girls. Then he picked up Jiao Muzhen and the Jiao Renzhong and arranged them behind him. Then he ordered Bai Zai to gallop toward the inner martial world's teleportation array. After leaving the gloomy jungle and returning to the main road, Xiaoqin found that there were a lot less cultivators shuttling back and forth. He reckoned that those people had already found a seclusion spot and were working hard to break through to the venerable realm. Xiaoqin was not interested in the others. He continued walking along the main road. However, it did not take him long to see 2 seclusion sites lined up side by side. A group of cultivators had gathered around the 2 sites. Among them there were a few figures that Xiaoqin felt were quite familiar. However, due to the interference of the fog, he couldn't see who they were for a while. Xiaoqin released his divine sense to investigate and found that the leaders were 2 acquaintances, Tang Qianling and Tang Qianqi, as well as the disciples of Awakening Heaven sect who had besieged him before. At this time, they were discussing how to allocate these 2 seclusion sites so as to make the most reasonable use of resources. Looking at Tang Qianling and the others who occupied more than half of the road, Xiaoqin couldn't help but frown and yell, The fools in front, hurry up and scram. This young master has urgent matters to attend to. Those of you who don't scram, watch out for your dog lives. After shouting, Xiaoqin squeezed the horse's abdomen and sped up. Anyway, he had already warned them. If they didn't get out of the way, they would die. What the hell? You actually dare to clamor in front of young Master Tang? I think you're tired of living? Bah. When Tang Qianqi heard the roar, he turned his head and saw a white object rushing out of the fog. He gathered his qi and was about to curse, but just as he was cursing, he felt something hit his chest heavily. Under this hit, Tang Qianqi was unable to resist. His whole body flew out with a whoosh, and fell heavily not far away. He lay on the ground for a long time and could not get up. The corner of his mouth was still bubbling with blood. I warned you to get out of the way, but you still stood there like a fool. You've damaged my horse. Can you afford to pay for it? Xiao Chen jumped off the back of Bai Zai and sneered at Tang Qianqi, who was not far away. After catching the rest of the people on the ground, Xiao Chen brought them to Tang Qianling and the others. He pretended to be surprised and said, "Aya, isn't this little Tang? What are you all doing here? Is there money on the ground?" As Bai Zai had just sent a person flying, it was in a good mood. Most of its originally sullen emotions had been vented. It followed behind Xiao Chen and shook its head proudly. "Xiao Chen, why are you here? *CK. What kind of stupid horse is this? Why is it so big?" When Tang Qianling saw that Tang Qianqi had been sent flying, he wanted to get angry. However, when he saw that the person who came was Xiao Chen, he immediately lost his temper. When he turned his head and saw the big white horse that Bai Zai had transformed into, Tang Qianling lost his composure and shouted in surprise. The Bai's spiritual beast rolled its eyes at Tang Qianling. "Another ignorant fellow. *CK your mother horse." Xiao Chen patted Bai Zai's head and said calmly, "Why are you scolding me the moment you come up?" Tang Qianling frowned. A strange thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Could it be that the name of this stupid horse is called *CK your mother horse? *CK Xiao Chen really has a bad taste. I don't want to waste my breath on a retard like you, Xiao Chen said, then glanced behind Tang Qianling. He didn't see any trace of elder son except for Jia Tuyao, who was lying on the stretcher. Xiao Chen asked in surprise, Where did that idiot surnamed son go?" "You ask me, but who should I ask? Where did elder son go? How would I know?" Tang Qianling impatiently waved his hand. He ordered his men to check on Tang Qianqi's injury, then looked at Xiao Chen with vigilance and said, "Xiao Chen, if you don't have anything else to say, don't disturb our breakthrough." "Why not? I have something else to say." Xiao Chen didn't let Tang Qianling go so easily. He continued to ask, "Do you know where the Hong family and the Song family of the internal martial arts world are?" Tang Qianqi, who was lying on the ground, suddenly moved. The Hong family? The family that Hong Zhu was from? He knew it. Although their family was small, in order to win the heart of a beauty, he had specially inquired about it. He didn't expect that Xiao Chen actually wanted to know more about the Hong family. Could it be that he was interested in Hong Zhu? Wishful thinking. I won't tell you what I know. Hong Zhu is definitely in my bag. What Hong family and Song family? Never heard of them. Tang Qianling shook his head and said disdainfully, "I have never cared about that kind of tattered small family." "Are you done asking?" "You're done asking." Before Tang Qianling could finish, a young disciple who was the leader of the Qi Tian sect suddenly noticed something and suddenly jumped out. He pointed at Xing Gongzi, who was behind Xiao Chen, and shouted, "Xing Gongzi, you have already broken through to the venerable realm, why are you still with Xiao Chen and the rest?" This person was Elder Chen's last disciple. He only knew how to concentrate on training and never asked about the matters of the sect. He didn't know that Elder Sun had deliberately left Xing Gongzi by Xiao Chen's side to monitor Xiao Chen's every move. Therefore, when he saw that she was mixed in with Xiao Chen's group, he was so indignant. Xing Gongzi was shocked. Where did this rash youth come from? Now that the people from Qi Tian sect and Xiao Chen's group were present, and there were also people from the Tang family watching from the side, how was she going to explain? There were others in Qi Tian sect who knew about the situation. They pulled that disciple and whispered, "Elder Sun knows about this matter." Chapter 1249. Know what? The young disciple sneered and rolled his eyes at the person who tried to persuade him. He arrogantly lectured, "Elder Sun is muddled, but are you all muddled as well? Xing Gongzi has already harmed Xiao Chen many times. How is he still safe and sound? I don't care if you believe it or not, but I don't believe it." "You idiot, why are you blindly spouting nonsense when you don't understand?" Xiao Chen glared at the young disciple and said matter-of-factly, "I like Xing Gongzi and am currently pursuing her. Furthermore, I am magnanimous and have already forgiven her." When Xing Gongzi heard this, her face turned red and she quietly lowered her head. Her heart was beating wildly. Was this a confession from Xiao Chen? Furthermore, he did it in front of so many people. It was so embarrassing. Should she agree to him? No way, no way. Perhaps Xiao Chen only wanted to fool the people from Awakening Heaven sect and purposely said this. He seemed to have done this in the past as well. This person had a glib tongue and his words were not reliable. It was better to observe him for a while more before deciding. "You're talking nonsense." The young disciple was not to be outdone and retorted sarcastically, "You have so many women behind you. How do you still have the time to pursue others? This reason is too lousy. What? Money can't buy my willingness. Xiao Qin sneered and condensed an electric ball in his hand. He stared at the young disciple and said, "But you brat, you actually dare to bare your fangs and jump up and down like a monkey in front of this young master. Are you asking for a beating? Could it be that being struck by lightning just now wasn't satisfying enough and you want to try it again?" Seeing a bright blue electric ball suddenly appear in Xiao Chen's hand, the young disciple was so frightened that his face turned pale and he took a few steps back. Although he relied on his status as an outstanding disciple of the sect and dared to reprimand Xing Gongzi without any misgivings, he had no way to deal with Xiao Chen, who spoke with his fists. He really didn't expect that Xiao Chen would be so biased towards her. For a moment, he was shocked and afraid and didn't know what to say to counterattack. "How boring. You've been intimidated so easily?" Xiao Chen curled his lips and withdrew his electric ball art in disdain. He then called for everyone to jump back onto the base spirit beast's back. With Xiao Chen's current cultivation, he couldn't be bothered to waste time with this group of people. The most important thing right now was to find Xinjingxian and the others. Sitting on the base spiritual beast's back, Xiao Chen looked down at Tang Qianling's group and calmly said, "I still have important matters to attend to, so I don't have the time to waste with you scum. Go on with your gay affairs." Following that, the base spirit beast spat out a breath of hot air and raised its front hooves. Then it quickly disappeared into the fog with Xiao Chen and the others. "Humph! Why aren't you going out now that you've advanced? The venerable realm is filled with danger. When you encounter it, you'll have no one to help you even if you cry for help. You deserve to die." Tang Qianling heaved a sigh of relief and glared hatefully at Xiao Chen's back. Turning around to check on Tang Qianqi's injuries, Tang Qianling found that he was only slightly shaken and was not a big deal. Thus, he didn't take it to heart and continued to command the others to enter the seclusion point and prepare to break through. After Xiao Chen and the others ran forward for a distance, they confirmed that Tang Qianling and the others could no longer see them. Only then did they change direction and flew towards the teleportation portal. Xiao Chen naturally wanted to go out. However, after he met Tang Qianling and the others, he suddenly had an idea. Therefore, he didn't want them to see him walking out so openly. Xiao Chen intended to take this opportunity to inquire about the Hong family and the Song family while also looking for the mysterious place that Jianghu mentioned outside the secret realm. Jianghu said before that he accidentally learned that Qi Tianmen sent the workers of the Tianyu mine to a mysterious place. It was possible that Xiao Chen's father, Cheng Minjing's uncle and Tang Tang's parents were all sent there. Although it was only a speculation, Xiao Chen always had a vague feeling that his father's disappearance seemed to have an inexplicable relationship with Qi Tianmen. If he could find the mysterious place, he might really be able to find out the whereabouts of his father. In addition, after Jianghu became the young master, he gradually had contact with the family affairs. He also vaguely knew some of the situation of Qi Tianmen's biohuman experiments. However, Jiayuto had always been mainly responsible for the family's cooperation with the outside world. After Jiayubian lost his life, Qi Tianmen handed over this matter to him. Therefore, only Jiayuto knew the specific content. However, this second uncle had always adopted a strict and defensive strategy when dealing with Jianghu. Therefore, Jianghu had no way to obtain detailed information. He only knew that Qi Tianmen had united the three major families to develop biohumans. He was not clear about other details. Jianghu had always trusted Xiao Chen. He also told him about this matter in full detail. Although Xiao Chen didn't say it, he had a strong worry in his heart. Was there any connection between the mysterious place and this biohuman experiment? Could my father have also been transformed into a biohuman and sent to that mysterious place? On the way to the secret realm, Xiao Chen had discussed this matter with Cheng Minjing and Tang Tang. Both of them also felt that this was very likely. Therefore, they were more and more worried about their loved ones. Now that there was this opportunity, Xiao Chen planned to take advantage of the main forces of several sects and families swarming into the Venerable's secret realm to investigate this situation. After quietly leaving the Venerable's secret realm, Xiao Chen and his group stayed near the pier. They went back and forth to ask many people, but unfortunately, they couldn't get the specific address of the Hong family and the Song family. After all, in the martial arts world, there were many small and medium-sized families like this. However, these two families were usually very low-key and did not have any business dealings with other families. Therefore, even fewer people knew about them. However, in the process of asking for information, Xiao Chen and his group received another piece of information. Not far from the west of the secret realm's pier, there seemed to be a similar transmission portal. However, after asking around, Xiaochen realized that although many people mentioned this situation, basically none of them had actually seen the transmission portal. Most of them were just spreading rumors, and the more they spread, the more unbelievable it became. In the end, no one knew where the transmission portal led to. Although many practitioners knew about this rumor, they still looked skeptical. Since the process of entering the Venerable's secret realm was so mature, and everyone knew the details and they could go with their fellow disciples, it was much safer. Who would be willing to take the risk of going to another unknown transmission portal? Chapter 1250. Seeing that they really couldn't get anything out of them, Xiaochen, Jiamuzhen, and the others discussed for a while. Instead of continuing to wander around like headless flies and trying their luck to ask about the whereabouts of the Hong family and Song family, it was better to explore the teleportation formation. Who knows, they might find more valuable information. After everyone finished their discussion, Xiaochen rode on bays and led the group to the west. After leaving the pier, the people along the way gradually became sparse. There were very few pedestrians, and it was completely different from the bustling scene at the pier. The further west they went, the more remote it became. Other than a few wandering beasts and abandoned buildings by the side of the road, there was nothing else. It was unknown whether it was because the scenery was too desolate or because the area was relatively large, but when the cultivator said that it wasn't far to the west, Xiaochen and the rest felt that it was rather far. Even the extremely fast Baizhe spirit beast had to run for a long time before it could reach its destination. Just as everyone was about to arrive, Xiaochen's divine sense suddenly sensed that there was a group of low-level cultivators guarding the road in front of them. Looking at their clothes, they should be people from Awakening Heaven sect. Xiaochen didn't want to get entangled with them too much, nor was he willing to beat the grass and scare the snake. Thus, he simply used a camouflage technique and directly whizzed past the group of cultivators. The cultivators guarding the road only felt a gust of wind blow past them, causing them to sway. However, after standing up straight and looking again, they didn't find any traces of anything, so they didn't think much of it. Xiaochen let Bei slow down a little. After walking for about half an hour, the outline of a teleportation formation finally faintly appeared in front of them. After gradually getting closer, everyone realized that the teleportation formation was constantly shining with a faint white light. It seemed that someone had activated the formation at the scene, causing it to be in operation. However, they didn't know what they were doing. Xiaochen quickly looked. There's a group of people there. They seem to be biohumans. Little Miss Xing was sitting at the very front of the spirit beasts, so she could see that there were many people standing in front of the teleportation array. They were all slowly walking towards the array. As those people basically had dull eyes and sluggish movements, Miss Xing was very familiar with this type of people. Therefore, she immediately determined that these people should be the biohumans created by Awakening Heavenly Gate. And Xiaochen nodded slightly. His heart ached as he stared at the rigid biohumans. He urged the wizard spiritual beast to speed up and charge forward. Recalling that she used to be manipulated like this group of biohumans, Tang Tang also felt very uncomfortable. Tears kept swirling in her eyes. She wished she could grow a pair of wings immediately, fly over directly, and save all of them. Xiaochen. That biohuman's back seems to be my uncle Cheng Zhongqian. Cheng Minjing, who had been staring in front, suddenly became nervous. She pulled Xiaochen with one hand and pointed at the back of a biohuman in khaki clothes with the other. She said anxiously, Let's hurry up and save him. If that array is activated, it'll be too late. Xiaochen nodded. He estimated that the distance should be about right. He exerted force on his feet and immediately jumped up from the back of the wizard spiritual beast. As he rushed forward, he shouted, All of you stop. As soon as he finished speaking, Xiaochen had already condensed 2 thunderballs in his hands. He smashed them fiercely at the teleportation formation not far away, trying to destroy it directly and thus stop Awakening Heavenly Gate's evil deeds. Boom, boom. The 2 thunderballs approached the teleportation formation at an extremely fast speed. Then they exploded above it, making a deafening explosion. However, the shock wave of the explosion was completely blocked by the protective measures of the formation. The moment the thunderballs exploded, the teleportation formation glowed with a white light. The biohumans who were already standing inside instantly disappeared. It was obvious that they had been teleported to another place. Xiaochen was the closest to the formation. At the moment when the white light flashed, he seemed to see a familiar figure standing in the middle of the formation. It seemed to be his father. Xiao Chen's heart was in his throat. He did not have time to think about anything. He immediately flew over as fast as he could, wanting to enter the teleportation formation with his father and follow him to see what was going on. However, before he could reach the teleportation formation, a few people suddenly flashed out of the remaining biohumans. They exuded an extremely majestic aura and forcibly blocked Xiao Chen's way. Standing at the front of those people was Situ Qitian. As soon as he rushed out, he pointed at Xiao Chen and scolded, "Brat, stop right there. This is the territory of the Awakening Heaven sect. No one is allowed to enter. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Situ Qitian had originally wanted to directly attack and kill Xiao Chen. However, he considered that there was still a group of biohumans that had not been teleported in. If he could not kill Xiao Chen immediately, this brat would find an opportunity to cause trouble and destroy the teleportation formation. That would not be worth it. After weighing the pros and cons, Situ Qitian could only first protect the formation and the biohumans behind him. He stared at Xiao Chen's every move with a vigilant look. At this time, Jia Yuto also stood out. He immediately saw Jia Muzhen and Jia Renzhong who had just arrived. He was instantly enraged. He stomped his feet and scolded, "Jia Muzhen, you little bastard, hurry up and take Xiao Chen away. Don't stay here and cause trouble. This is a big matter. It's not a game you guys are playing." "Jia Yuto, who do you think you are? How dare you order me around? I'm the current young master of the Jia family. Since the Jia family is involved in this matter, I naturally have the right to know the relevant situation." Jia Muzhen naturally did not want to be outdone. He strode to Xiao Chen's side and stood side by side with him. He did not have the slightest intention of retreating. "Ah, Jia Yuto, can you do it? You're just a brat who is still wet behind the ears. Do you really think that you're invincible just because you've become the young master?" An old man in white also walked over, revealing the strength of a venerable perfection. He stared coldly at Jia Muzhen and said, "Brat, I advise you to take your lovers behind you and get out of here quickly. Now that the people in charge of the three major families of the internal martial arts world are here, I'm afraid you don't have the qualifications to stop this matter." Another old man in red also had the strength of a venerable perfection. He appeared in front of everyone along with the old man in white and said sinisterly. This old man in red was the old master of the Yu family, and the old man in white in front of him was the old master of the Tang family. They usually cultivated in seclusion and rarely appeared in front of the world. This time, they had specially come to escort the biohumans into the world of cultivators to explore. Originally, they thought that it would be smooth sailing. They never expected that a few hotheads would appear halfway through. Chapter 1251. However, the two elders of the Tang family and the Yu family did not take Xiao Chen and his group seriously. In their eyes, although these brats were emitting the aura of venerable ones, they were still very young. It was obvious that they had just broken through in the venerable secret realm. Compared to these elders, they were not even worth mentioning. "You old fools dare to block this young master's path? It seems like you're tired of living." Xiao Chen watched as the group of biohumans disappeared. The anger in his heart surged. He did not care who these people in front of him were because he did not care about them at all. "Little brat, do you think we'll be scared by a few words? You're too naive." "Clan leader," Yu looked at Xiao Chen indifferently with his hands behind his back. He said coldly, "Seeing that you're still young and don't know the strength of me and these people, I'll let you go this time. As long as you kneel down and kowtow 3 times and apologize to us, I'll consider forgiving you." I'm not done yet." Xiao Chen coldly snorted as a cold and disdainful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. He said word by word, "Since you think that your lives are too long, then this young master doesn't mind sending you off today. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death." What arrogance! "Xiao Chen, I'd like to see what kind of ability you have to make all of us stay here." When Situ Qitian saw that the remaining biohumans were already standing in the middle of the formation, he immediately focused his attention on Xiao Chen and roared fiercely. As soon as he finished speaking, Situ Qitian's aura surged. He activated his heart technique and flew up. He used all of his strength and slammed his palm heavily on Xiao Chen's head, intending to kill him in one move. Xiao Chen crossed his arms and did not move. He smiled as he looked at Situ Qitian, who was getting closer and closer. He did not even take a step back. He did not even have the slightest intention of dodging or defending. Situ Qitian's face revealed a look of surprise. Seeing that his palm wind was about to hit Xiao Chen, Why didn't this brat dodge? Could it be that he was unable to move due to the force of the wind from his palm? Or was it because he was too shocked and only knew how to stand there and not move? On the other side, the two old men from the Tang family and Yu family were also a little surprised. They looked at each other and thought at the same time, this brat really can't do it. He had probably been scared silly by sect leader Situ. Earlier he had solemnly vowed to keep everyone here, but now he was so oppressed by the other party's aura that he was rooted to the spot. It seemed that he was just an embroidered pillow with a false appearance. However, Jiayuto, who was standing behind Situ Qitian, and elder son who was standing on the side, had different opinions. They had seen Xiao Chen's methods several times and knew that he must have come prepared. He must have a backup plan waiting. However, Jiayuto and elder son were also puzzled. Sect leader Situ had already used 10% of his power. No matter how cunning Xiao Chen was, he shouldn't be able to avoid it, right? What was his backup plan? Slap. A crisp sound was heard. Everyone immediately put away their thoughts and looked up. At the same time they were dumbfounded. They thought that they would see the scene of Xiao Chen vomiting blood and being sent flying. However, they didn't expect that there was indeed a person flying in the sky, but that person was Situ Qitian. When he looked down again he saw Xiao Chen standing in the same spot as if nothing had happened. His outstretched palm slowly fell down as he watched the defenseless Situ Qitian fly further and further away in the air with a smile that was not a smile. I remember that the Kuei Shan faction of the outer martial arts world should be your Qitian sect's lackey, right? Xiao Chen smiled coldly and ridiculed him expressionlessly. The father and son of the Kuei Shan faction are both good actors. One can act like a flying dragonfly and the other can fly like a zigzag. It seems that from today onwards, Situ Qitian, you will also have a famous nickname. I think you should be called Situ Fei or Qitian Fei. It sounds very cool. Situ Qitian was flying far away in the sky, so naturally he couldn't answer. Elder son was so angry that his face turned red, but he didn't dare to do anything to Xiao Chen. He could only lower his head and pretend that he didn't hear anything. Xiao Chen looked at Situ Qitian, who finally began to fall, and frowned slightly. He felt that something was wrong because the place where Situ Qitian fell happened to be in the middle of the teleportation array. The protective measures of the array that originally resisted the Thunderball technique didn't seem to detect any threat from Situ Qitian, so it didn't activate in time and let him fall straight down. When Xiao Chen felt that something was wrong, he wanted to rush up and give another palm strike to change Situ Qitian's position, but it was too late. He had just taken a step forward, and he watched as Situ Qitian fell heavily into the array. Boom. Due to the huge impact of Situ Qitian falling from the sky, a hole was directly smashed in the middle of the teleportation array, and a burst of smoke rose up. Then a white light flashed and Situ Qitian, who was unknown whether he was alive or dead, and the remaining few overturned biohumans, disappeared in an instant from the teleportation array. It seemed that they were all sent to the other end of the array to be companions together. When the teleportation ended and everyone disappeared, the entire array seemed to be affected by the big hole that Situ Qitian had smashed, and it suddenly collapsed. A crackling sound was heard, and the white light in the array gradually dimmed and slowly disappeared, leaving only a pile of broken bricks and tiles. Obviously, this teleportation array had been completely destroyed and had lost its function. Everyone was shocked by this scene. When the last dim white light disappeared, elder son Jiayuto and the old masters of the other two big families finally reacted. They couldn't help but look at each other. This was a big problem. The open heaven gate had been explored in the martial arts world for so long, and this was the only teleportation array that could lead to the cultivation world. Moreover, this array was left behind from ancient times. Now that it had collapsed, no one knew how to repair it. In this way, Situ Qitian was very likely to be like the people who had explored before, never to return again. Xiao Chen also had a headache. He was too unlucky. How could it be so coincidental that the teleportation array was destroyed? Now, even if he wanted to enter the array to explore, he couldn't do it. With nowhere to vent his anger, Xiao Chen looked at the few people in front of him with a gloomy face and said coldly, "You guys don't just stand there. Anyway, I've already killed one, so I don't mind killing a few more of you. Whoever wants to accompany that idiot Situ Qitian on the road to the netherworld, feel free to come and try. I promise to satisfy your needs." Chapter 1252. The few people who were originally full of arrogance were now speechless. The faces of the Tang family head and the Yu family head alternated between red and white. Their expressions were extremely embarrassed. Now they had already realized that Xiao Chen was pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. His strength was much higher than theirs. Situ Qitian, as a venerable perfection, couldn't even last one move against Xiao Chen. Who would dare to openly go against him? Elder Sun stared at the collapsed formation silently. His emotions were very complicated. Situ Qitian was his sect master. Now that he was thrown into the teleportation formation, he couldn't come back. Qitian's sect was like a group of dragons without a leader. What was he going to do? As for Jianghu, he was trembling with fear. He was so scared that his legs were about to turn into jelly. He did not dare to voice any objections. Instead, he carefully took a few steps back and quietly hid himself behind Elder Sun and the others. All right, since none of you have any objections, then I'll say my opinion. Seeing that the other party had their heads lowered in silence, Xiao Chen knew that his move earlier had stunned them. Hence, he took 2 steps forward and stared at Elder Sun as he said, "Son, that fellow Situ Qitian just said that he's going to pass the position of sect master to Xing Gongzi. Did you hear that?" "What the hell? I didn't." Elder Sun came back to his senses. When he heard what Xiao Chen said, he was a little stunned. He didn't know what he was planning. Just as he was about to shake his head to deny it, he saw Xiao Chen slowly raise his hand. He was so scared that he trembled and quickly nodded. Yes. Sect Master Situ did say that." Before Xiao Chen could make another move, Elder Sun immediately bowed to Miss Xing behind him. This subordinate greets Sect Master Xing. Although he was extremely unwilling, Elder Sun still respectfully bowed to little Lady Xing. There was no other way. Xiao Chen's cultivation was too high. Now that he was watching from the side, he didn't have any confidence in winning. It was better to be honest and not go against him. Looking at Elder Sun's sudden change from arrogance to deference, little Miss Xing was at a loss of what to do. She subconsciously glanced at Xiao Chen, not understanding why he suddenly wanted her to be the sect leader. However, it was not appropriate for her to directly ask, so she could only vaguely agree. "Very well, since the Awakening Heaven sect and the Jia family are now my people, we'll count it as 2 against 2 now." Xiao Chen could not be bothered to talk nonsense with them, and directly asked about their purpose. "Tell me, what the hell are you doing here? What was on the other side of the portal? Why did you send so many biohumans there?" This. Elder Sun hesitated for a moment, glancing at the Tang and Yu family heads. Their gazes were drifting about, pretending not to see the look in Elder Sun's eyes. Jianghu was even more exaggerated. His entire body was hidden behind the crowd, completely invisible. "What? Do you also want to try flying?" Xiao Chen said coldly when he saw Elder Sun's expression. No, cough, I was just organizing my words. That great hero Xiao, it's like this." Elder Sun was really at his wit's end, so he could only pretend to cough twice and explain in detail. "On the other side of this portal is a place called the World of Cultivators." "World of Cultivators? Is that true? You old B***starred, are you trying to trick me?" Xiao Chen's eyes suddenly narrowed as he stared at Elder Sun suspiciously. World of Cultivators? This was the second time in a few short days that he had heard of this term. Could it be that the World of Cultivators that Elder Sun was talking about was the same place that Hongzhu mentioned? However, what was the matter with the so-called World of Cultivators? Since there was already a portal here, why did Hongzhu and the others still want to perform the World of Cultivators? If it was a World of Cultivators, then what were the sacrifices? Could it be Jingxian and the others? Xiao Chen's alarm bells went off in his head. If Jingxian was participating in the World of Cultivators' sacrifice, then it would be dangerous. Would the World of Cultivators' sacrifice threaten her life? Could it be that she specially went to the Venerable Realm to make a breakthrough just for this matter? Elder Sun naturally didn't know the thoughts that flashed through Xiao Chen's mind. He continued to honestly say, "It's true, great hero Xiao. However, the World of Cultivators is especially dangerous because our disciples from the Awakening Heaven sect had explored it before, but none of them returned. Therefore we chose to first experiment on the biohumans." Experiment on the biohumans? They can only accept orders and can't speak. How can they experiment? Cheng Minjing was worried about her uncle and immediately asked anxiously. After asking, Cheng Minjing looked at Tang Tang apologetically. After all, she didn't mean to mention her sad past. Tang Tang slightly shook her head and revealed a comforting smile, indicating that she didn't mind. The biohumans have cameras on them so they can record the scene after entering the magic formation at any time. Elder Sun glanced at the sullen Xiao Chen and explained obediently, the second generation of biohumans developed by the Awakening Heaven sect can be controlled from a distance, so we don't have to enter the world of cultivators ourselves. We only need to command them to explore the way outside the magic formation. Now that the magic formation has been destroyed, how can I know whether what you said is true or not? Xiao Chen was worried about Xinjing Xian, and his tone carried a hint of killing intent. What if you randomly make up a story and fabricate a world of cultivators? Xiao Chen Elder Sun didn't lie. Seeing that the situation was a little stiff, family head Tang quickly added, this magic formation can indeed lead to the world of cultivators. Someone has been there before and came back successfully. After he came back, his strength was greatly improved and he could even kill a venerable in the peak at will. He is just as powerful as you. Family head Yu nodded in agreement, but he was a little puzzled. This Xiao Chen killed Sidu Qitian with one move. Isn't he from the world of cultivators? If he really didn't come from the world of cultivators, where did such a powerful junior come from? Someone else had been there. Who was that person? Didn't you just say that no one came back? Xiao Chen glanced coldly at family head Tang and asked rhetorically. Well, family head Tang and family head Yu both showed a trace of fear. Obviously they were a little afraid of this person's name. They turned to look at Elder Sun who was standing next to them, indicating that they wanted him to continue. Ahem ahem ahem. Elder Sun coughed twice unnaturally and glared at his two stupid teammates with resentment. They really couldn't do anything right but were good at spoiling things. Originally he only wanted to mention the world of cultivators, but now he had spilled everything. Chapter 1253. Is your throat not feeling well? Do you want me to treat it for you? Xiao Chen's voice sounded like a demon to Elder Sunday. He quickly shook his head. Seeing that he could no longer hide it, he could only say, that person is the supreme sect leader of our Awakening Heaven sect. He was also the great devil of the inner martial arts world. Turning his head to look at the destroyed teleportation formation, Elder Sun's voice was a little hoarse. The supreme sect leader went to the world of cultivation through this teleportation formation and came back not long after. Moreover, his strength rose rapidly and he successfully broke through the limits of the Venerable Realm Peak. He was in the limelight in the inner martial arts world for a while, so everyone was looking forward to going to the world of cultivation to take a look. That's it? That's it? Xiao Chen asked again patiently. That's it. Elder Sun looked at the angry Xiao Chen and replied with a stutter. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Then I don't understand. Xiao Chen suddenly exploded and shouted fiercely at Elder Sun, you took my father away. I'll take it that you took him away at random. Then I'll admit it. But since I was driven out of my family, your Awakening Heaven sect has been going against me time and time again. What the hell are you trying to do? Actually, we didn't do anything. Oh no, there's a reason for this. Elder Sun did not expect Xiao Chen to suddenly become angry. He was so scared that he trembled. He first shook his head, but after thinking about it, he nodded. Looked very funny. What reason? What the hell does your supreme sect leader have to do with me? Could it be that he has some special perverted plot? Or do you think I'm easy to bully so you specifically picked me to deal with? Xiao Chen stared at Elder Sun angrily and asked repeatedly. This. Elder Sun looked a little embarrassed. He hesitated for a long time but could not say anything. Elder Sun, hurry up and say it. Everyone is still waiting here. Don't waste time. Old Master Tang could not help but say. In fact, his subtext was that everyone's lives were in the hands of this death god, Xiao Chen. If you want to die, don't drag others down with you. Oh. Hero Xiao, if I tell you the reason, don't be too angry. Elder Sun struggled in his heart for a while and asked tentatively. Hurry up and speak. Don't talk nonsense. What a waste of time. Xiao Chen waved his hand impatiently. Elder Sun sorted out his thoughts and said slowly, actually, your mother is the eldest daughter of a family in the inner martial arts world. She once went to the Demon Star sect to train. Our Awakening Heaven sect's supreme sect master, Situ Haoyin, accidentally saw her and fell in love with her immediately. He has always treated her as his crush. Xiao Chen frowned slightly. His mother? Could it be that his mother, who had been missing since he was a child, was also related to Awakening Heaven Gate? At that time Yi Xiaoya was so close to him. Could it be that she was also related to his mother? Elder Sun carefully looked at Xiao Chen. When he saw that he did not interrupt, he let out a sigh of relief and said, "In the end, I did not expect that your mother and that little Xiao Feng would be together with your father. Our supreme sect master was very angry and in a rage. He captured your mother? Oh? That means that your wretched sect master not only captured my mother, but also harmed my father. Then he deliberately came back to deal with me? That's quite a good plan. He wants to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. He wants to make our Xiao family extinct, right?" Xiao Qin clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as he said each word. Such a ruthless sect with such malicious intentions. If it were not for the fact that elder son still had some value, he would have killed him with a punch. Lady Xing, who was standing beside Xiao Qin, also had a face full of anger. She had never expected that elder son would want her to deal with Xiao Qin for this reason. Isn't this going too far? Jia Muzhen, Qing Menjing, and the other ladies were also extremely angry. Tian Soran was already rubbing her palms together, waiting for Xiao Qin's husband to say the word. Then she would immediately rush forward and beat up that elder Sunday. She would treat it as helping her husband vent his anger. Seeing that the group of people in front of him were filled with anger and murderous intent, elder son's legs became a little weak. He hurriedly explained, "No, that's not it. We actually did not want to kill you. Besides, I have also sent young Master Xing to save you several times. How could this be considered extinct? Great hero Xiao, you are thinking too much. We definitely did not have such intentions." "Is that so?" Xiao Qin sneered and immediately found the loophole in elder son's words. "This is even more contradictory. Don't think that I have forgotten that previously in Songning City in the secular world, Chao Yuliang and Qing Mingqiang really tried their best to kill me." When the two old masters of the Tang and Yu clan heard Xiao Qian's words, their eyes instantly became rounder than copper bells. They felt that it was extremely unbelievable. What? This guy was actually from the secular world. How could a lowly and barren place like the secular world cultivate an expert who was even more powerful than a venerable full circle? Was he dreaming? This. Elder son's face turned pale and cold sweat dripped down. He mumbled and didn't know what to say. His whole body was trembling like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind. Also, that father and son Ma Zhuzi and Ma Longting from the Kuei Mountain sect, they were also ordered by you guys, right? You're determined to kill me. Xiao Qin paced back and forth and asked again, "In the end at that time, you sent little Miss Xing to save me. I say, what's wrong with your Awakening Heaven sect? Did Situ Qitian's head get pierced? Or did that supreme sect leader go crazy? Why did he do this kind of nonsense?" Every time he recalled this experience, Xiao Qin felt that it was thrilling and lucky. In the past in Songning City, he was not only expelled from his clan, but also tormented by Chao Yuliang and Qing Mingqiang to the point of almost falling off a cliff. If it wasn't for his good luck in meeting his savior, the Elder Heaven Ancestor, he would have probably rotted into a pile of bones at the bottom of the cliff. Later on, when he returned to school, he experienced a few more murders. If it wasn't for the fact that he already had a little bit of strength at that time, in addition to the support of Missy, Bei Bei and Goddess Shen, he might have died in one of the traps. When he went to the outer Wulin, he would be chased by Ma Liwei from heaven to earth. He would have to hide like a stray dog. Even when he went to the morning market to set up a breakfast stall, he would have to be monitored by Miss Xing. It was simply too tragic. Along the way, Xiao Qin felt that it was a miracle that he was still alive. Fortunately, he had the Elder Heaven Ancestor to guide him in all aspects, the trust and help of a few female confidants, and the help of those loyal and righteous brothers. Otherwise, his current fate would probably be worse than Situ Qitian's. Chapter 1254. Actually, Hero Xiao, this is what happened. Elder Sun knew that if he didn't explain everything today, he wouldn't be able to get through this. He could only smile bitterly and say, "In the beginning, Awakening Heaven sect did want to get rid of you, but this has nothing to do with me. It was an order from our sect's Supreme Elder. I was only responsible for passing it down and letting the people below carry it out. Don't take it to heart." Wait, what did you say? Supreme Elder? Xiao Qin waved his hand to stop Elder Sun's words. He asked in surprise, "In your Awakening Heaven sect, other than that Hao Tian who is the Supreme Sect Master, there is another Supreme Elder? Was he the one who wanted to kill me?" Xiao Qin, who was originally filled with anger, felt a little baffled. The relationship of this Awakening Heaven sect was really messy. What was going on? Yes. Elder Sun nodded obediently and explained, Our Awakening Heaven sect has 2 Supreme Sect Masters and Supreme Elders. The Sect Master's strength is relatively high, while the Elders are responsible for some of the complicated affairs in the sect. According to what you said, Sidu Qiqian isn't considered a leader in your sect? He's just an errand boy? Xiao Qin looked at the ruins of the spell formation. He didn't expect that this incomparably arrogant Sidu Qiqian was just a small fry. Elder Sun sighed softly and shook his head. Back then, the Supreme Sect Master left not long after returning from the immortal cultivation world. Before leaving, he passed the position of the Sect Master to Sidu Qiqian and set the rule that the sect's disciples can no longer enter the immortal cultivation world through the spell formation. Little girl Xing nodded slightly. She also knew about this rule. It was just that the sect's disciples can't go to the mysterious place through the spell formation. At that time she didn't understand what it was. When she asked others, they didn't say anything, so she didn't take it to heart. After the Supreme Sect Master left, the Supreme Elder, who has always been responsible for our sect's internal affairs, secretly controlled the power of Awakening Heaven sect through Situ Qiqian. Elder Sun lowered his head and said softly, Supreme Sect Master had always thought that Qitian Sect Master was his man. I didn't expect that Qitian Sect Master had already sided with Supreme Elder. Xiao Qin rolled his eyes quietly. He did not expect that Awakening Sect, the leader of the internal world of martial artists and a giant of the evil cult, would have such complicated factions. It seemed that the Grand Elder didn't have any good intentions. However, what was the current strength of that fellow? Most importantly, Elder Sun then pointed at the formation and continued, Grand Elder has always been very interested in going to the cultivation world and wanted to restart this plan. After all, everyone wants to have more power. However, sect leader Grand Elder strictly forbade this. The sect rules cannot be easily changed, so this matter was put on hold. Wait a minute, I'm even more confused about this. Xiao Qin couldn't help but ask directly, what does it have to do with me whether he can go to the cultivation world or not? Why do you keep coming here to plot against me? Does he also have a grudge against me? Or is he the same as that sect leader Haotian, especially infatuated with my mother? One snatched her away and the other wanted to make a move against me? He has no grudge against you, but he does have some relationship with your mother. Elder Sun swallowed hard and then explained, it is because of this matter of going to the cultivation world that he specially came to find you. Xiao Qin raised his eyebrows and simply didn't ask any more. He waited for Elder Sun to continue. Because after sect leader Grand Elder wandered, he disappeared for many years and didn't come back. Grand Elder thinks that sect leader Grand Elder might have died or gone to another plane and won't come back. So, he wants to use you to see if he can lure sect leader Grand Elder out. If he can't be lured out, it proves that he has completely disappeared. Elder Sun spent a lot of effort to finish explaining. He was so tired that he was sweating profusely. The more I listen to you, the more confused I become. Xiao Qin didn't buy it and continued to ask, how can you use me to lure that Situ Haotian out? I'm not even his biological son. At this point, a thought suddenly appeared in Xiao Chen's mind. Could it be that my biological father isn't Xiao Feng? But that Situ Haotian and my mother gave birth to me? Isn't that a bit too melodramatic? No, absolutely impossible. You are not sect leader Grand Elder's son, but you are the son of the person he loves the most. Elder Sun was very smooth this time. Don't look at our sect leader Grand Elder who has 3 wives and 4 concubines. The person he loves the most in his heart is still your mother. If you encounter any danger in the secular world or the martial world, then your mother will certainly come to your rescue regardless of everything. Then of course sect leader Grand Elder who follows her will not just sit back and do nothing. He will certainly help. Hearing this, Xiao Qin finally understood the ins and outs of the matter. If his mother had been watching him, if his life was in danger, she would appear to save him. Naturally, that sect leader Grand Elder Situ Haotian would also rush over and appear in front of the world. After thinking through this logic, Xiao Qin couldn't help but curse in his heart. It seemed that this sect leader Grand Elder really had too many chores to handle. Why did he have to make such a simple matter so complicated and meticulous? Ordinary people really couldn't understand. It seemed that he was indeed made for a schemer. Elder Sun saw that after his tireless explanation, Xiao Qin finally showed a look of realization. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief and wiped the sweat off his forehead. This roundabout explanation was much more tiring than fighting 300 rounds with the enemy. What happened after that? Xiao Chen thought through the key points in the front and began to ask about what happened after that. After Chao Yuliang and the others failed, even the Kuei Mountain sect fell. Why didn't you guys chase after me? Shouldn't you be chasing after me? It's very simple. Previously, when Chao Yuliang and the Kuei Mountain sect made a move, that was a matter between the secular world and the martial world. It had nothing to do with our Awakening Heaven sect. Elder Sun shrugged and replied, but if we made a move on you and the sect leader found out, wouldn't all our previous efforts be in vain? Wouldn't we be greatly implicated? So in order to monitor my every move, you purposely sent the ignorant Lady Xing to my side? Xiao Chen asked coldly. Elder Sun nodded and said helplessly, we secretly arranged for you to be in danger without Awakening Heaven sect's participation. We wanted to see if your mother and sect leader Grand Elder would appear and save you. If not, we would let young Master Xing, who was guarding by the side, save you and not let you die. Then we would create more danger. Chapter 1255. TSK, so that's how it is. You guys have really put in a lot of effort. I think you can act in an Infernal Affairs movie. Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and said sarcastically. Behind him, Jia Muzin, Qing Menjing, and the other women also showed a look of contempt at the same time. Obviously, they did not have a good impression of the so-called Grand Supreme Elder. In order to lure out the Grand Supreme sect leader and Xiao Chen's mother, he actually did such a despicable thing to Xiao Chen and had to pretend to be innocent. This person was really bad. Lady Xing also frowned slightly. She knew that she was sent to spy on Xiao Chen to lure out a person, but she did not know that there was such a big game of chess behind the scenes. She also did not expect that she would indirectly become the Grand Supreme Elder's accomplice, and almost caused Xiao Chen's death a few times. She could not help but feel a little guilty in her heart. We were also forced to. In the face of Xiao Chen's sarcasm, Elder Sun did not dare to refute. He could only smile apologetically and said, don't be fooled by the fact that sect leader Qi Tian is usually very energetic and prestigious in the inner martial arts world. In fact, he is just a chess piece in the hands of the Grand Supreme Elder, and I am just an errand boy. Naturally, I would not dare to openly disobey the order. Then Situ Qitian's plan to restart the immortal cultivation world was also suggested by the Grand Supreme Elder, right? Is he not afraid of the Grand Supreme sect leader coming back for revenge? Xiao Chen ignored Elder Sun's humble flattery and asked indifferently. After so many tests on you, the Supreme sect leader didn't show up again. So, we speculated that he might have died or left the inner martial arts world. That's why the Supreme sect leader made up his mind to restart the plan. Elder Sun spread his hands and answered in a very natural manner. In fact, Elder Sun was also very afraid that the Grand Supreme sect leader would appear again, but after all, the Grand Supreme Elder was now the person in charge of Qi Tian sect, so he could only do as he was told. Xiao Chen nodded in understanding. Suddenly he thought of something and asked, by the way, what was the situation with the Devil sect leader election in the outer martial arts world? At first, Ma Wuxia of the Kuei Mountain sect didn't agree to let me be the sect master of the Devil sect. Why did he agree later? Thinking of the matter regarding the Demon sect master, Xiao Chen felt that it was a little strange. After he became the sect master, those people's attitudes seemed to have changed a few times. Could it be that the Supreme Elder of Awakening sect was playing tricks behind the scenes? That matter was naturally done to lure out the Supreme sect master. Elder Sun sighed and said, in addition to being the sect master of Qitian sect, Hao Yin is also the sect master of the dark sect in the inner martial arts world. He is extremely overbearing and tough. If he knows about this, he will definitely not allow the outer martial arts world to have another sect master of the dark sect. It seems that in order to lure out that Situ Hao Yin, aside from dealing with me, you also came up with a lot of tricks. Xiao Chen said with a faint smile. At first, we didn't expect that you would be involved in this matter. Elder Sun glanced at Xiao Chen and said helplessly, at that time, we thought that if that idiot Ma Wuxia became the sect master, the Supreme sect master might appear out of rage. But if you were the sect master because of your mother's relationship, the Supreme sect master might very likely turn a blind eye to it. Xiao Chen suddenly understood. No wonder Ma Wuxia was so unhappy when he became the sect master of the Devil sect. At first, he thought that he only obstructed his path to becoming the sect master of the Devil sect. He didn't expect that he had obstructed their plan. Thinking about how Ma Wuxia took the initiative to flatter him later, it was probably because he didn't want the Supreme sect master to see that they had a dispute with him. Otherwise, if he was accidentally killed, they would be punished by the Supreme Sect Master for revenge. Thinking back, when little Miss Xing first appeared on the surface, she was always going against him. However, when Ma Baobao was blinded by revenge for his son's death and chased after him, she was protecting him in the dark. Thinking about it, other than being worried that he would really be killed, she was also afraid of accidentally offending the Supreme Sect leader, so she did this. After going back and forth for a long time, Xiaoqin finally understood what was going on. It seemed that the tyrannical and selfish Supreme Sect Master had gone to the immortal cultivation world and became so arrogant. He didn't want others to also gain strength, so he gave the order not to restart the immortal cultivation world project. Unfortunately, the Supreme Sect Master was not a person who knew his place. After the Supreme Sect Master went out for a period of time, he secretly set up a battle array and secretly used Xiaoqin as a chess piece to test the waters. At the same time, he also used other methods to lure Situ Haotian out. After trying many times, the Grand Supreme Elder found that no matter how he jumped, the Grand Supreme Sect leader never appeared, so he gradually let down his guard and made up his mind to restart the world of cultivation plan, so that he could also go in and show off. However, because he didn't have the experience of predecessors, the Supreme Sect Master was afraid that if he went in rashly, there would be unpredictable situations. Therefore, he arranged for disciples to explore the way first, but in the end, no one came back. Although he failed to explore the way, he was not willing to give up, so he created a cyborg experiment. He joined forces with the three big families to capture people everywhere, causing the whole martial arts world and the secular world to be in a state of panic and unrest. All of this was just to satisfy his selfish desires. The more Xiaoqin thought about it, the angrier he got. He didn't expect that there would be a group of people above Situ Qitian. This was 2F** King Bat**. He thought that as long as he got rid of Qitian men, the whole thing would end. In the end, he didn't expect that a clown like the Supreme Sect Master would appear. What's the strength of your Supreme Sect Master? He could subdue Situ Qitian and control the entire Qitian men, so he should be more than a 10th level perfected martial venerable, right? Xiaoqin suppressed his anger and asked calmly. He's really quite powerful. At the mention of the Supreme Sect Master, Elder Sun's expression became a little unnatural. He looked very afraid and said hesitantly, logically speaking, he should also be a perfected martial venerable expert. After all, this is the highest level in the martial arts world. If he wants to break through to a higher level, he must go to the immortal cultivation world to find an opportunity, but Elder Sun paused for a moment and turned back to look at the collapsed formation. Then he turned back to look at Xiaoqin fearfully and continued, however, our sect master Qitian couldn't even last one move against him. The reason why he stopped was because Elder Sun suddenly realized that apart from the Supreme Sect Master, there was another person who was equally terrifying. That was Xiaoqin in front of him. Wasn't Situ Qitian also sent flying by a slap from Xiaoqin? Moreover, he couldn't even see how strong Xiaoqin was. How powerful was he? Chapter 1256. Xiaoqin didn't notice Elder Sun's pause. Instead, he frowned slightly and thought to himself, this Grand Supreme Elder does seem to have some ability. Could it be that he's also a cultivator? Is he on the same level as me? But if he's a cultivator, it's impossible for there to be no signs at all. Secretly shaking his head, Xiaoqin gave up on the idea of letting little Lady Xing return to Qitian sect alone to investigate the situation. If he let little Lady Xing return alone, her strength was still shallow and he didn't know if the other party already had any suspicions, so there would definitely be danger. Forget it, it's better to let her follow me. It's safer this way. I'll wait for that Grand Supreme Elder to take the initiative to find me. That's right, where is your Grand Supreme Elder now? Xiaoqin pondered for a moment and felt that it was better to understand more about the Grand Supreme Elder. Otherwise he would be in the dark while he was in the light. This guy was so cunning. If the people around him were to be attacked again, it would be troublesome. I'm not too sure about this. Elder Sun shook his head and said helplessly, he rarely shows himself. I heard that he hides in seclusion in the sect all year round. Even I don't have the qualifications to come into contact with him. Then who does he usually meet with? Xiaoqin raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect this old thing to be so arrogant. He only communicates with Qitian sect leader. Then, through Qitian sect leader, he conveys information to us and assigns tasks. Elder Sun explained obediently. Xiaoqin had already guessed this answer. Hearing this, he continued to ask, If that's the case, then you should know where he is in seclusion, right? I'm really not too sure. Qi Tian sect leader has never told us. Elder Sun shook his head again. He himself had only heard of this Grand Supreme Elder. He didn't know anything else. You don't know this and you don't know that. Are you even an elder of Qi Tian sect? You're just a bystander, right? Do you want me to help you loosen your muscles and improve your memory? Xiao Qin saw that Elder Sun didn't know anything and fiercely bared his teeth at him. So, Hero Xiao, I really don't know. Elder Sun was so scared that his legs went soft and he almost knelt down. He explained with a sobbing tone, Sect Master Qi Tian's deterrent power is already very great. That Grand Elder is much more powerful than Sect Master. Even if I have more curiosity and doubts in my heart, I don't dare to ask too much. If I accidentally annoy them, wouldn't I have to bear the consequences? Xiao Qin glared at Elder Sun, but he didn't really hit him. After all, Xiao Qin knew that this guy was telling the truth. He could only sigh inwardly, feeling a headache coming on. If he couldn't uncover the Great Elder, then little Miss Xing wouldn't be able to officially take over Awakening Heaven sect. If that happened, then it would definitely affect his next plan. There were 3 big aristocratic families and 1 big demonic sect. Other than the Tang family and the Yu family, the Jia family had basically become Xiao Chen's left and right arms. Awakening Heaven sect, with little Miss Xing, could barely be considered their own power. As for the Tang and Yu families, after the 2 old patriarchs saw the situation, they would naturally not do anything stupid. If they didn't, they would be beaten up a few times and they would be well behaved. Now, the only thing that Xiao Qin was worried about was the Grand Elder of Awakening Heaven sect. This old fellow was simply a ticking time bomb. Moreover, he didn't know when he would suddenly explode. After hearing the ins and outs of Elder Sun's story, Xiao Qin knew that sooner or later, he would have to make a trip to the immortal cultivation world to find his father. During this period of time, he absolutely couldn't allow the Grand Elder to act recklessly in the immortal cultivation world. If he went to the immortal cultivation world and had no time to spare, then this old thing would take the opportunity to do something unfavorable to the Jia family and little Miss Xing. If that happened, then he would really be at a loss. Ding dong ding dong. Just as Xiao Qin was in a dilemma and felt that his hands were tied, a sound suddenly came from Elder Sun's body. Everyone present was stunned for a moment. Elder Sun was the first to react. He quickly took out a tablet and quickly tapped on the screen a few times. Xiao Qin's thoughts were suddenly interrupted. He couldn't help but angrily stare at Elder Sun and said sinisterly, "The one with the surname Sun, I realize that you are quite broad-minded. At this time you still have the mood to go online and date? You are really leisurely." Elder Sun was so frightened by Xiao Chen's killing intent that he trembled violently. The tablet in his hand almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, his eyes and hands were sharp and he grabbed it in time. "That. Hero Xiao, it's not what you think." Elder Sun smiled and explained, "This tablet is connected to the camera on the body of the cyborgs. I originally thought that the array had collapsed and the camera could not be connected. I didn't expect that there would be a signal now. Therefore, I wanted to quickly see the movements of the cyborgs and observe the situation in the immortal cultivation world." "Oh, this thing can still be used? Come, let me see the situation inside." Xiao Qin immediately walked over, took the tablet and carefully stared at the image on the screen. Cheng Minjing and Tang Tang immediately walked over to see if they could find any key clues from the camera. On the other side, Old Master Tang and Old Master Yu also wanted to see the situation in the immortal cultivation world. However, they were afraid of Xiao Chen's power, so they hesitated for a few steps and did not have the courage to walk over. In order to smoothly capture the situation in the immortal cultivation world, Qi Tianmen had equipped all the cyborgs that entered the transmission array with professional cameras. At this time, the screen of the tablet had been separated into more than a dozen pictures by software. Just like the surveillance cameras in the building, each picture was showing a different image. As each camera was installed on the chest of the cyborgs, the angle of the recording could only show the scene in front of the cyborgs. There were no recording tools for the cyborgs themselves, so it was impossible to tell who was taking the video. Xiao Qin and Cheng Minjing also could not find the familiar figure in the video. What was even more ridiculous was that after Xiao Qin got the tablet, he only looked at it for a few seconds before all the images on the screen suddenly became more and more blurry. Not long after, the entire screen was filled with snowflakes. It looked like an old-fashioned television that couldn't receive any signal. Damn. What kind of stupid thing did you buy? Xiao Qin clicked on the screen a few times in confusion, but still found that there was no response. How can this be a broken toy? This is the original Applejack. Elder Son was originally sticking his head out to take a look, but when he heard Xiao Chen's words, he immediately retorted. After turning it over to take a look, Xiao Chen found that there was really an apple logo on the back of the tablet. Chapter 1257. Xiao Chen could not help but furrow his brows as he asked, "Mr. Sun, could this tablet of yours be a counterfeit? I haven't looked at it for a while, why can't the image be displayed?" "No way. I bought this iPad from abroad, and I even have a formal receipt. How can our awakening sect lack this little money?" Elder Sun was taken aback. At first he didn't quite believe it. He thought that Xiao Chen had done something to blackmail him. He quickly stretched his head to take a look and found that there was really no image on the screen. Xiao Chen was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He directly handed over the tablet, crossed his arms in front of his chest, stared at Elder Sun with anger and said coldly, "Don't look at it blindly. Hurry up and fix this thing or I'll twist your head off and kick it like a ball." Elder Sun carefully held the tablet in his hand. He first pressed the refresh button a few times and found that it didn't work, so he turned off the software. After a while he turned it back on again. The result was still the same. There was no image on the screen and it was still a vast expanse of snowflakes. At his wit's end, Elder Sun had to display the usual routine of the secular world's network management. He first turned off the tablet, then took out the wireless network card inside, carefully checked it, wiped the dust, then inserted it back in and turned it back on. Looking at the tablet screen gradually brightening, Elder Sun silently prayed in his heart, hoping that there would be no more problems. After turning it on, Elder Sun immediately opened the software, but to his disappointment the monitoring screen was still the same. He couldn't receive any signal at all, only a snowflake rain. "You've been fiddling with it for a long time. Is it done? It can't be the same as before, right?" Looking at Elder Sun clumsily fiddling for a while, Xiao Chen, who was waiting at the side, was a little bored, so he impatiently urged, "Xiao, I've studied it and don't think it's the tablet's problem. It's probably that the signal in the cultivation world is cut off and can't be transmitted back, which causes this phenomenon," Elder Sun concluded. Just now, Elder Sun used another software to open a web page and found that the network was very smooth. After switching back to the monitoring software, he tried to refresh the screen a few times, but there was still no screen. He had no choice but to give up. Hearing Elder Sun's words, Tang family head and Yu family head's expressions were a little disappointed. Who would have thought that the perfect plan that they had painstakingly prepared for so many years would be ruined just like that? Jiayuto also hung his head dejectedly as if his father had died. Originally, he wanted to take advantage of this plan to enter the world of cultivators and properly increase his strength. Then he would replace Jia Jinyan and become the person in charge of the Jia clan. At that time he would kick Jia Muzin away and replace him with his own son. In the end, he did not expect that after such a long time, the teleportation circle would be destroyed, and there would be no news of the biohumans. Not only did he gain nothing, but the spiritual jades used to teleport the biohumans were also wasted. Communication devices could not be contacted for the time being, and everyone was a little unwilling. However, the people from the three big families still had a glimmer of hope in their hearts. After all, no matter what, Sidu Qitian had also entered the world of cultivators. Even if it was unknown whether he was dead or alive, they believed that he would not be directly destroyed by a slap from Xiao Chen, right? As long as Situ Qitian could enter the world of cultivators, he would be considered an expert with the strength of a venerable paragon. After the injury from that slap from Xiao Chen had healed, he might even be able to obtain some benefits in the world of cultivators. At that time, he might even be able to safely return to the internal martial arts world. Although Situ Qitian could no longer be teleported out after the teleportation circle here was destroyed, these people did not take this to heart. Since the world of cultivators was so powerful, he should be able to return through other means. If there was really no other way, then wouldn't it be fine to create another teleportation circle here? Although those people were hoping to get lucky, Xiao Chen no longer had the patience to continue waiting. He felt that there was not much use just waiting here foolishly. Besides, he did not know what the hell the world of cultivators was. Although Xiao Chen wanted to go in immediately to find his father's whereabouts, he had other things to do at the moment. He had to arrange everything properly. Xiao Chen was not a person who cared about his head and ignored his tail. He could not abandon everyone and leave. At least now he knew that there was a supreme elder in Qitian sect. Now that he had understood the situation, Xiaoqin did not intend to keep this old guy and let him play some tricks behind his back. Otherwise, if he did not care about it, it would definitely be bad in the future. Xiaoqin looked at Xing Chik and began to assign tasks. Xing Gongzi, you follow me to Qitian sect and find that supreme elder. I want to meet this old bastard and see how powerful he is. Since the decision had been made, Xiaoqin was too lazy to continue wasting time here. If these people were willing to wait, then let them be. Anyway, the teleportation circle had been completely destroyed. In a short period of time, he was not afraid of what they would do. Oh, okay. Xing Chik nodded obediently. Xing Chik originally had a grudge against Qitian sect for using her countless times. She wanted to ask for an explanation. When she heard that Xiaoqin was willing to bring her along, she was a little excited and immediately agreed. Menjing, you and Jianghu will stay here first. Help me keep an eye on these old guys. If they dare to act blindly without thinking. Xiaoqin touched his chin and glanced back and forth between Elder Sun and the Tang family patriarchs, as well as Jiayuto, who was hiding in the back and pretending not to be there. Hero Xiao, we will definitely not act blindly without thinking. We will wait here for Qitian sect leader to come out. We will not do anything else. Family Patriarch Tang was a little flustered and quickly waved his hand. Tian Suruan, on the other hand, was eager to get into action. She waved her little fist and shouted, Husband Xiaoqin, tell us. How are we going to deal with them? Do we beat them up or tie them up and hang them on a tree? Sister Suruan is the best at doing these things. Forget it. With your cultivation you really can't do anything to them for a while. I'll be more straightforward and cripple these people's cultivation first, so that they won't think too much and cause trouble again. Xiaoqin thought for a while, lifted his foot and walked over to Elder Sun and the others with a smirk. So, Hero Xiao, let's talk things out. Why do you always have to resort to violence? Elder Sun was almost scared to death. He had also suffered a lot in order to reach his current cultivation. When he heard that Xiaoqin was going to cripple him, he felt that the whole sky was going to collapse. Chapter 1258. Family Head Yu also lowered his voice and said, That's right, great hero Xiao, don't worry. We promise we won't do anything. Besides, although we aren't the most influential people in the inner martial arts world, we are still famous people. We don't have any grudges against your friends. No matter what, we won't do anything to them and ruin our own reputations. Yes, Xiao Xiao. Great hero Xiao, we are only interested in the world of cultivators. We definitely won't make things difficult for your friends. Family Head Tang immediately nodded and added. After seeing Xiaoqin send Sidu Qitian flying, they were very afraid of his strength. If Xiaoqin didn't cause trouble for them, they would already be thanking the heavens and earth. How would they dare to take the initiative to provoke Qing Menjing and the others? Wouldn't that be the same as eating a bear's heart and a leopard's gall? Hiding at the back, Jiayuto's small face was deathly pale. He didn't even dare to let out a fart. He lowered his head and didn't make a sound. With his current strength, he couldn't even be considered as a bystander. If it weren't for the other two family heads insisting on staying, he would have already slipped away. Oh, alright, then I'll trust you this once. Only then did Xiaoqin stop in his tracks. He swept his cold gaze across the crowd and suddenly unleashed a boundless aura. He warned them word by word, you'd better not act recklessly. Otherwise I'll definitely remove Awakening Heaven Gate, Tang Clan, and you clan from the pugilistic world. Their backs were drenched in cold sweat, and their legs were trembling like sifting chaff. They nodded with great difficulty. Seeing that his warning was effective, Xiaoqin retracted his aura and turned around to say a few words to Qing Menjing and Jianghu. He also reminded Jia Tuyao and the other girls to pay attention to their safety. Then he took Xing Girl and mounted Bai Zhe, preparing to set off for Qitian sect. Bai Zhe took 2 steps forward, and before Elder Sun and the others could breathe a sigh of relief, Xiaoqin suddenly stopped. After thinking for a moment, he turned around and walked back to Elder Sun's side. Taking advantage of Elder Sun's moment of shock, Xiaoqin reached out and picked him up. Hanging him by the side of the spiritual beast, he calmly said, Since you have nothing to do here, you might as well come with me. Let's go and be a witness for the new sect master of Awakening Heaven sect, Xing Gongzi. This is not appropriate. In fact, Hero Xiao only needs to go by yourself. Elder Sun was just about to refuse, but before he could finish his words, he felt his vision blur. A strong gust of wind blew past, and the surrounding flowers and trees instantly flew past him. At that moment, Elder Sun felt as if he was flying in the sky. He was so frightened that even his voice became distorted. His entire body stiffened as he stuck to the side of the bay's spiritual beast. He did not dare to move at all, afraid that he would accidentally fall and be smashed into meat paste. Under Xiao Chen's command, the bay's spiritual beast shuttled back and forth in the inner martial world at its fastest speed. Because it usually lived in the Venerable One's secret realm, the bay's spiritual beast was very curious about the outside world. It did not honestly hurry along its journey. Sometimes, it would suddenly burrow into the forest for a stroll, and when it came out, it would still be chewing on some unknown herbs. Sometimes, it would huff and puff as it climbed up a small hill, and then quickly rush down. It was having a great time. The bay's spiritual beast was playing happily, so Xiao Chen did not pay it too much attention. In any case, he was already used to this stupid spiritual beast's behavior. Instead, he heard Elder Sun's cries of surprise from time to time, which made him feel a little noisy. 4 hours passed, and the bay's spiritual beast gradually slowed down. Finally, it steadily stopped outside the open heaven gate. After estimating the time, Xiao Chen was shocked from the bottom of his heart. He did not think that using this fellow to replace the flying sword would actually save him a lot of time. Furthermore, this fellow was playing all over the place. It could be seen how fast it was running. However, the one who suffered the most was Elder Sunday. He had been hanging on the side of the spiritual beast the whole time, and his eyes, ears, nose, and throat were all filled with cold wind. At this moment, he only felt that his eyes were seeing stars, and even his hair was blowing backwards. His clothes were tattered and his body was covered with bruises. It was obvious that he had been hit quite hard on the road. Xiao Chen swung his arm and first threw Elder Sun to the side of the road. Then he supported little girl Xing and jumped off the horse's back. He rushed to Elder Sun and ordered, "Quickly, go and call all the disciples of the open heaven gate. First, come and see the new sect leader Xing Gongzi. Then bring me to find the Grand Elder and see where that old thing is hiding." Cow. Go and find them. Blarg. Elder Sun stood up in a daze and swayed back and forth a few steps on the side of the road. Before he could find the open heaven gate, he suddenly felt his stomach turn upside down. His legs went soft and he knelt on the side of the road and began to vomit. What a useless thing. I let you experience the speed of a high-level spiritual beast for free, but you still got carsick. No, you got carsick from the spiritual beast. You're still a venerable expert? You're simply trash. You really don't have a good life. Xiao Chen coldly ridiculed. Although this was the case, Xiao Chen could not do anything to Elder Sunday. He could only stand far away with little girl Xing and wait for this fellow to finish vomiting. Little girl Xing covered her nose in disgust and looked at Elder Sun with disdain. Then she took a step further away. It was obvious that she could not stand this disgusting smell and wanted to find a place to breathe. Who is it? How dare you behave so atrociously in the open heaven gate? Are you tired of living? Elder Sun's vomiting quickly attracted the attention of a group of patrolling guards. The leader of the guards walked over with large strides and a face full of vigilance. However, just as he finished asking, he felt that the person kneeling on the ground was a little familiar. After carefully looking at him, he realized that this person was wearing tattered clothes and had a body full of scars. He looked like a beggar. Wasn't this Elder Sun from his own sect? Son? Elder Sun? What's wrong with you? What happened? Do you want me to find a doctor for you? The leader of the guards asked in shock. No. There's no need. Go and gather all the disciples. I have an important matter to announce to everyone. Blarg. Elder Sun waved his hand and struggled to finish what he had to say. His stomach churned again and with a wuss sound he continued to vomit. Oh, all right, I'll go now. The leader of the guards frowned slightly. Although he felt that it was a little inappropriate for Elder Sun to vomit outside the sect's gate, he was only an ordinary disciple and did not dare to disobey the great elder's orders. He immediately turned around and ran towards the gate, preparing to enter the open heaven gate to call for help. Chapter 1259. After a while, all the disciples and elders of Awakening Heaven sect had gathered at the square. Everyone was in groups and discussing in low voices. They were very confused about the current situation. After all, the sect had never gathered everyone together in the past. Could it be that something big had happened? Seeing that everyone in the sect had gathered, Elder Sun, who was squatting at the side, hurriedly circulated his demonic chi and forcefully suppressed the restlessness in his stomach. He stood up and staggered to the front of everyone. He took a few deep breaths and tried to calm his emotions. Xiao Qin and Xing Las naturally followed him. The former looked relaxed and carefree, but the latter looked a little nervous and her heart was a little perturbed. After all, she was about to be promoted from an ordinary disciple to the sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect. She was still a little uncomfortable and didn't know how to face the upcoming situation. Xiao Qin looked back at Xing Las and smiled. He rubbed her head, indicating that he was here and there was no need to be afraid. Disciples of Awakening Heaven sect, listen up. Elder Sun took a deep breath and announced loudly, because sect leader Situ has entered the immortal cultivation world to train in seclusion, he may not return in a short period of time. Therefore, before entering the immortal cultivation world, he has already officially passed the position of sect leader to Xing Gongzi. From today onwards, Xing Gongzi will be in charge of all the affairs of Awakening Heaven sect. No way, isn't sect leader Situ's decision a little too casual? How can the dignified position of Awakening Heaven sect's sect leader be passed to an ordinary disciple like Xing Gongzi? That's right. Whether it is experience or strength, this old man far surpasses Xing Gongzi. If she is really going to be the sect leader, this old man will be the first to refuse. I also refuse. In the past, I have contributed so much to Awakening Heaven sect. Why didn't the sect remember it and let this little lass be the sect leader? I want the sect to have a fair election. Start over. That's right. Who would be willing to work for a little lass who is still wet behind her ears? It's more like she is my wife. If she becomes the sect leader, I think Awakening Heaven sect will be finished. You are almost a year older than her and you still have the nerve to ask her to be your wife? Let me do it. Just as Elder Sun finished his announcement, the disciples and elders of the Awakening Heaven sect all exploded in anger. One after another they raised all kinds of objections. The entire square was a boiling cauldron of voices and resentment. Almost no one agreed to let little girl Xing become the sect master. There were even people who jumped out and directly challenged little Miss Xing. They wanted to have a one-on-one duel with her. Whoever won would become the next sect leader. Just as the disciples were about to start an internal strife, a few flashes of blue lightning suddenly lit up. Without giving anyone time to react, they immediately flew into the crowd of disciples and struck the loudest ones. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation, ah. Several extremely miserable screams came from the crowd. Those who were struck by the lightning had no ability to resist and directly fell to the ground, twitching all over and foaming at the mouth. The other disciples who were temporarily safe and sound immediately retreated, afraid that they would be caught in the crossfire. In an instant, a few empty spaces appeared in the square. In the middle of the spaces were the disciples who were struck by the lightning. The remaining people watched helplessly as their screams turned into silence. Not long after, they were charred black by the lightning and curled up motionlessly. They could not be more dead. Is there anyone else who is unconvinced or wants to fight one-on-one? As your sect master Xing's personal bodyguard, I will accompany you to the end. Just as the disciples were stunned by the scene in front of them, a low and intimidating voice suddenly rang out. Everyone turned their heads in unison and saw Xiao Qin holding 2 balls of lightning in his hands. He stared at them expressionlessly. Seeing that everyone's attention had been attracted, Xiao Qin circulated his yuan qi and released a powerful pressure from his body, spreading it out towards the crowd in front of him. Before the Awakening Heaven sect disciples could tell what strength Xiao Qin had, they suddenly felt a strong sense of suffocation. It was as if a huge hand was gripping their necks or their chests were heavily smashed by a boulder. They saw stars and could not breathe. Looking at the 2 crackling balls of lightning in Xiao Qin's hands and feeling the unparalleled pressure, some of the weaker disciples quickly could not hold on. Their faces turned pale, their legs went limp, and they directly collapsed to the ground. As for the other disciples who had already broken through to the martial venerable realm, they were also struggling. They clenched their fists tightly as they bitterly endured the pressure released by Xiao Qin. They did not dare to slack off in the slightest, afraid that they would fall to the ground in embarrassment like the low-level disciples if they were not careful. All the disciples had a question in their hearts. Who was this guy? Although they could not see his strength, the pressure he released was even more powerful than their sect leader Sidu Qitian. It was simply too heaven-defying. Just as the disciples were feeling anxious and trying to figure out what to do, Xiaochen looked around and felt that he had more or less established his might. He still had to pass the authority to Xing Biki, so he withdrew the lightning ball in his hand and the pressure that had spread out. The Awakening Heaven sect disciples all heaved a sigh of relief. Those who were lying on the ground could finally get up, but they still did not dare to dust off their bodies. They could only stand there with their heads lowered. Now, who else has any objections? Anyone who wants to challenge me? Xiaochen waited for a while and seeing that no one spoke, he said in a deep voice, "Since none of you have any objections, then be a little more obedient for this young master. Listen carefully to sect leader Xing's instructions for the next mission. Whoever dares to be impudent and disrespectful to sect leader Xing will end up like these charred corpses on the ground." The entire plaza was silent. After hearing Xiaochen's warning, not a single Awakening Heaven sect disciple dared to act recklessly. They all stood in place obediently and did not make a sound. No matter what, strength was the best right to speak. Moreover, the corpses on the ground were too ghastly. Just a glance at them would cause people to feel fear for no reason. "Xiaochen, thank you." Xing girl looked gratefully at Xiaochen and said softly. Although little chick Xing had always felt that Xiaochen had a glib tongue and wasn't a proper person, when she encountered trouble, he would be the first to step forward and block in front of her, blocking those messy matters. This made little chick Xing's impression of him immediately increase by a lot. Xiaochen shook his head slightly, then raised his chin and pointed at the Awakening Heaven sect disciples in front of him, who did not even dare to breathe loudly. He indicated that Xing girl did not need to take it to heart and that they should first deal with the people in front of them. Chapter 1260. Little girl Xing furrowed her brows and thought for a while. She didn't know what to say and softly asked for help. "Xiaochen, what should I do next? I've never been a sect leader before, so I don't have much experience. Furthermore, many of the people here are more experienced than I am. I don't know how to give them orders." "Oh, it's very simple." Xiaochen shrugged his shoulders and replied in a low voice, "You just need to let them search the entire Qitian sect and see if there's a secret room suitable for closed-door cultivation. That way we can find that Grand Elder." Xiaochen wasn't too interested in managing Qitian sect. His current goal was to support little girl Xing and let her successfully become the sect leader. This would remove the threat that Qitian sect posed to him and the people around him. Then he would get rid of that malignant Grand Elder. "I'm all right." Little girl Xing nodded her head and took a deep breath. She took 2 steps forward and swept her gaze across everyone present. She cleared her throat and pretended to be dignified as she loudly said, "Everyone, there's no need to be too nervous. As long as you obediently listen to my orders, I will naturally not punish any of you. Now, I will pass on my first order to all of you." Little girl Xing's crisp voice reverberated throughout the plaza. Although the disciples who had their heads lowered felt that it was strange for her to call herself the sect leader, they didn't dare to say anything. There was still a demon glaring at them like a tiger watching its prey. "Next, you will search the entire sect in detail. Look for any secret passageways or seclusion points. If you find anything suspicious, or if you discover any traces of strangers, report to me as soon as possible." Little Miss Xing waved her hand and gave the order to search the sect. After everyone heard this, they were slightly stunned. They looked at each other in dismay and didn't know where to start. Besides, wasn't this a little too strange? Why did the new sect leader want them to search for these strange things? Logically, shouldn't the sect leader know everything that happened in the sect like the back of his hand? Could it be that there was something fishy about this? After a short moment of silence, the group of disciples had already split up. Some of the more quick-witted ones had already loudly received their orders and obediently turned around to carry out Xing Zhao's orders. At this time, they already understood that Xing Gongzi would have the final say in Qitian Gate from now on. After all, she had such a powerful backer by her side. She could send people on their way at any time. What capital did they have to resist? If he followed through and found what Xing Gongzi needed, he might even have a chance to advance or obtain more cultivation resources. As for some of the more inflexible disciples, they were still standing in the square, hesitating. They didn't know whether they should obey or question. "What's wrong with you guys? Why are you still in a daze? Are you waiting for sect leader Xing to give you a red packet?" Xiaochen glared at them and said coldly, "Why are you still here? Hurry up and get to work." If you don't find what sect leader Xing needs before the sky turns dark, then wait for someone to collect your corpses. Yes, yes. The disciples who were originally in a dilemma suddenly quivered. They thought of Xiao Chen's demonic methods and naturally didn't dare to be negligent. They were so scared that they scattered like birds and beasts, one after another, ran towards the various rooms in the sect. As Qi Tian Gate was the #1 sect of the inner martial world's demonic cultivators, not only did it occupy a vast area, it also had hundreds of houses. They were located in different places and were surrounded by green mountains and green water. It made people feel relaxed and happy. Even though the environment was very beautiful, if one wanted to find something, it would make people scratch their heads. There were many Awakening Heaven sect disciples, all of them spread out to search, but it still took them close to 4 hours to search the entire sect. After searching one round, the disciples found nothing. Apart from a few secret rooms that stored heavenly treasures, they didn't find any other secluded places, let alone any strangers. Have you all checked clearly? Are you sure you didn't miss anything? After listening to the last disciple's report, little girl Xing couldn't help but frown. Could it be that the Grand Elder knew that Xiao Chen was going to find trouble with him, so he ran away in advance? Replying to sect leader Xing, the disciples have already searched the sect many times. There really isn't any other abnormal place. An elder bowed with a bitter face and carefully reported. Hero Xiao, what do you think next? Elder Sun finally calmed down and stood to the side with an awkward expression. After all, they couldn't find any traces of the Grand Elder. Xiao Chen definitely wouldn't let this matter rest. He could only carefully ask for the opinion of this fiend. However, before Elder Sun could finish speaking, Xiao Chen waved his hand impatiently and interrupted him. Then he glared at him and said, "The one with the surname Sun, are you not taking Sect Master Xing seriously? He is the true sect leader of your sect. Why the hell are you asking me?" Elder Sun jumped in fright. Only now did he realize that his actions were a bit inappropriate. After all, little girl Xing was only a low-level disciple that ran errands for him. Now that she had suddenly become his direct superior, it was a bit hard to switch roles. Really, you don't even have the slightest bit of eyesight. Don't tell me you gave your chrysanthemum to Situ Qitian in exchange for this position? Xiao Chen snorted and coldly mocked. Pfft. As soon as Xiao Chen finished speaking, many of the disciples in the plaza couldn't help but laugh. Normally they had all been bullied by Elder Sunday. Now that they saw him being humiliated in front of Xiao Chen, their moods immediately became much better. Their original fear also gradually dissipated. Although Elder Sun was so angry that his lungs were about to explode, he didn't dare to act rashly. He could only forcefully suppress the anger in his heart. Turning his head, he respectfully bowed to little girl Xing and asked, "Sect leader Xing, what do you think we should do next? How about this? I think these disciples didn't search carefully enough. Why don't we just let them search again?" Elder Sun naturally knew that the people below him were laughing at him. Although he couldn't punish them in front of everyone, he could choose to use another method to teach these disciples a lesson. Small things, I can't beat Xiao Chen, but do you think I can't deal with you guys? The disciples who were already dissatisfied with Elder Sun had their eyes blazing with anger when they heard these words. They wanted nothing more than to slap Elder Sun to death. Wasn't he clearly trying to torment them? What AF * king piece of trash. Xiao Chen, how about, we do as Elder Sun said and let everyone search carefully again? Little girl Xing didn't have any ideas of her own and turned to Xiao Chen for help. Chapter 1261. Little chick Xing still hadn't gotten used to her identity as the sect leader. She was also clueless about how to deal with the following tasks. Her mind was blank and she couldn't think of any other way. Oh, forget it. There's no need for that. I'll try other methods. I should be able to find that old bastard's hiding place. Xiao Chen smiled faintly and directly released his divine sense to cover the entire Qitian sect. He carefully checked every place. Xiao Chen could also see that the disciples of Qitian sect were somewhat resentful. However, their main target was Elder Sun, so he didn't intend to be too ruthless. After all, little chick Xing still had to be in charge of this sect in the future. It wouldn't do to be unpopular. It was better to let those disciples secretly hate Elder Sun in their hearts. However, when Xiao Chen said this, Elder Sun immediately gritted his teeth in anger. Just now when he asked Xiao Chen for instructions, this guy insisted that he ask little Chick Xing. Now that he turned around, little Chick Xing went to ask Xiao Chen. This was simply an unnecessary move. Maybe Xiao Chen just wanted to take the opportunity to humiliate him. Although he was angry, elder son could only bear with it. Who asked him to be weak and his skills inferior to others? Elder son secretly swore that for now, he would temporarily act according to Xiao Chen and little Chick Xing's mood. When Sidu Qitian achieved great success in the immortal cultivation world and returned with glory, he would settle the score with these two people. So you're hiding there. It's really a good place. No wonder no one can find you. Just as elder son's thoughts were running wild, Xiao Chen suddenly laughed coldly and muttered to himself. It turned out that Xiao Chen had already found the location of the Grand Elder. Just now, when he extended his divine sense into Sidu Qitian's room, he finally found a secret seclusion spot behind the bookcase. Moreover, the hidden door behind the bookcase was equipped with a very complicated electronic password lock. Now, it made sense that those disciples couldn't find the secret room. They probably didn't dare to casually enter the sect master's room. Even if they did, they definitely wouldn't dare to mess around due to Sidu Qitian's remaining prestige, which was why they returned empty-handed. Xiao Chen's spiritual awareness swept again and confirmed that there was really an old man sitting in the seclusion spot. He was not in a hurry and stood in the same place and stretched his waist. Xiao Chen, have you found it? Where is he? When little Miss Xing heard Xiao Chen's words, her face lit up with joy. She anxiously asked, "Do you want me to send a disciple to find him? Or should we go and find him directly?" "There's no need to go through all that trouble." Xiao Chen waved his hand, then turned in another direction and suddenly shouted in a loud voice, "Grand Elder, listen up." Sidu Qitian, that old fellow has already been played to death by me. Stop hiding and quickly get out of your seclusion. Otherwise, this young master will immediately burn the awakening heaven gate to ashes. Boom! Just as Xiao Chen's voice fell, a loud sound suddenly came from Sidu Qitian's room. Then a black figure broke through the window and shot towards Xiao Chen's direction. When it reached Xiao Chen, the black figure turned 2.5 times in the air before landing in front of Xiao Chen. The face was old and the hair was white. It was the old man that Xiao Chen's spiritual awareness had detected previously. It was the Grand Elder who controlled Sidu Qitian like a puppet. "The one shouting outside just now was you, kid?" The Grand Elder was dressed in black, and there was no extra expression on his face. His cold eyes swept over Xiao Chen and the others, then stopped on Elder Son for a while. He opened his mouth and asked in a hoarse voice, "Little son, what happened here? Sidu Qitian was really killed by this kid?" You are..." Elder Son was stunned. He suddenly realized that the old man in front of him had a familiar feeling. After carefully looking at the old man's face, Elder Son exclaimed in surprise, "Master Gong Sun Yen, is it really you? How is this possible? Back then you left without saying goodbye. I thought you were already..." It turned out that this old man was called Gong Sun Yen. He was the master who taught Elder Son back then. In the past, when Gong Sun Yen was training in the secular world, he met Elder Son by chance. At that time, Elder Son was still a child who was bullied by everyone. When Gong Sun Yen found him, he was being beaten up by a group of older children. The bored Gong Sun Yen stood at the side and observed for a while. He found that although this kid was beaten black and blue, his muscles and bones were soft and good at avoiding fatal injuries. His heart moved and he saved him. After chatting with him for a while, Gong Sun Yen found that his comprehension was good and could be considered a cultivation talent. Gong Sun Yen brought him back to Open Heaven Gate and carefully taught him. He also took one of the Sun characters from the compound surname Gong Sun as Elder Sun's new name. However, not long after, when Elder Sun's cultivation had finally reached a small level, Gong Sun Yen suddenly disappeared. From then on, he never appeared in the inner martial arts world again. It was as if he had disappeared from the world. In order to find his master, Elder Sun spent a year searching everywhere for his whereabouts. However, he did not get any results. Any information about this person was like a stone thrown into the sea. There was no response. Elder Sun thought that Gong Sun Yen had already left the inner martial arts world, or that he had met with misfortune. He felt sad for a while because of this. He did not expect that Gong Sun Yen would suddenly appear in front of him today. He could not help but feel excited. "If you want to reminisce, let's talk about the past later." Gong Sun Yen interrupted Elder Sun's surprised and happy words. He stared coldly at Xiao Chen and a trace of haze flashed in his eyes. He asked elder son, tell me first what happened to this kid. Was he the one who killed Sidu Qitian? Why are you staying with him? Previously, Gong Sun Yin had been cultivating in the seclusion spot. Suddenly he had a faint feeling that he was being watched. He was just about to find Sidu Qitian and ask him what was going on when he heard Xiao Chen's shout outside. He was shocked and angry. He immediately got up and rushed out. Before elder son could continue, Xiao Chen pushed him to the side and stood up. He crossed his arms and said carelessly, "You old thing, you hid yourself pretty well. If it wasn't for me, you guys wouldn't have been able to find you." "You killed Sidu Qitian?" Gong Sun Yen narrowed his eyes. He could not sense the strength of Xiao Chen. He was a little confused, so he asked again to confirm. The corner of Xiao Chen's mouth twitched. He said slowly, "I might as well tell you the truth. That idiot Sidu Qitian was indeed killed by this young master. If you don't want to die like him, then quickly destroy your own cultivation to show your sincerity. Otherwise I will beat you up into a pig's head. You won't be able to embarrass yourself in front of your disciple." Chapter 1262. "Ah! What an arrogant brat." Gong Sun Yin laughed instead of getting angry. He looked at Xiao Chen with disdain and said, "You merely got rid of that bastard Situ Wuji. How dare you act so presumptuously in front of me? You're simply courting death." Before he finished speaking, Gong Sun Yan's body shook and he instantly revealed his martial venerable perfection realm cultivation. He leaped into the air and swooped down towards Xiao Chen. He ruthlessly struck out with his palm, clearly intending to kill Xiao Chen on the spot. A thick demonic energy mixed with the whistling sound of the air breaking approached. Xiao Chen's eyes narrowed and he quickly determined Gong Sun Yan's strength. This old thing was indeed not simple. Although he looked like he was only at the martial venerable perfection realm, in reality he was already on the verge of breaking through. It was no wonder that Sidu Qitian was far from being his match. "Old bastard, I think you've been in seclusion for too long. Your thinking has long become outdated." Xiao Chen sneered and looked at the approaching Gong Sun Yen mockingly. "Now that the entire inner martial world is under my control, why wouldn't I dare to be presumptuous? You'd better go back and be a coward. Don't come out and find trouble for yourself." Faced with Gong Sun Yan's attack, Xiao Chen had no intention of dodging. After he finished speaking, he even had the time to let out a long yawn. Then he casually struck out with his palm to meet Gong Sun Yan's palm. Bang! In the blink of an eye, both of their palms collided. Miss Xing stood at the side with an anxious expression. Her hands were twisted like fried dough twists, and her heart was in her throat. She could clearly feel that Gong Sun Yan's strength had definitely surpassed Sidu Qitian's by too much. It might even be more than the martial venerable perfection realm. Thus, she was worried about Xiao Chen's reckless action. However, after the two of them landed on the ground, Miss Xing suddenly discovered that Gong Sun Yan's face had turned deathly pale and he was panting heavily. On the other hand, Xiao Chen had his arms crossed and a smile on his face as if nothing had happened. He was even humming a little tune, looking very relaxed. With this comparison, little girl Xing knew that Gong Sun Yin was definitely not Xiao Chen's match. Her heart finally calmed down and her expression relaxed quite a bit. "Master, how are you feeling?" Elder Sun also saw the clues and quickly ran over. He carefully supported Gong Sun Yin and stared at Xiao Chen vigilantly. He was afraid that Xiao Chen would take advantage of Gong Sun Yan's injury to launch a sneak attack. "The one with the surname Sun, isn't your master's strength a little too weak?" Xiao Chen whistled and casually teased, "Master Xiao, I haven't even used my full strength yet, but he's already panting like a bull. What kind of Grand Supreme Elder of the number 1 evil sect in Wulin? Is that a lie?" "He's simply a piece of trash." Although that was what Xiao Chen said, he thought to himself that it was a close shave. If he had not been brought there by the base spiritual beast and suffered the lightning tribulation, thereby benefiting from the misfortune and breaking through, he would have had to put in a lot more effort to deal with the Grand Supreme Elder. "Xiao Chen. Master Xiao, as the saying goes, one should be lenient wherever possible. Since you've already taken advantage of me today and Qi Tian sect has already made Xing Gongzi the sect leader, can you let my master live?" Elder Sun had no choice but to lower his voice and say, "I promise to take him away immediately and never step foot into Qi Tian sect again." Elder Sun also knew that the situation was already hopeless. Even Gong Sun Yin, whom he had infinite respect for, was not a match for Xiao Chen. There was no point in staying here any longer. Bastard. When Gong Sun Yin heard Elder Sun's words, he immediately broke free from Elder Sun's supporting arm, stretched out his hand and directly slapped Elder Sunday. He angrily scolded, "Open Heaven sect relied on this old man's hard work to achieve today's achievements with great difficulty. But you, with just a few words, you want to hand it over to others? This old man will definitely not leave. If you want to leave, then leave by yourself." "But master, right now we are not a match for Xiao Chen. Staying here." Elder Sun still wanted to say a few more words, but Xiao Chen was too lazy to listen to their conversation. Without waiting for him to finish, he directly interrupted, "Enough, the two of you stop acting. If you want to live, honestly answer a few of my questions. If the answers satisfy me, this young master can consider sparing 1-2 lives." Xiao Chen still wanted to use Gong Sun Yen to find out more about the cultivation world. Naturally, he would not easily kill him. Apart from this old thing should have some other value. After all, little girl Xing had just become the sect leader and there were many things that she was still clueless about. She had to let Elder Sun and Gong Sun Yen help her sort things out. Wishful thinking. Gong Sun Yen immediately straightened his back and put on an inviolable expression. He said in a serious tone, "Little brat, this old man admits that my strength is not as high as yours. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't think that you can get any benefits from this old man. Let me tell you, this old man is also a person who has seen wind and waves." Gong Sun Yen still wanted to put on a brave front and display his unyielding spirit. However, halfway through his words he felt his vision blur. Then he suddenly received a slap to the face. The slap made him dizzy and see stars. Before Gong Sun Yen could even react, he was once again kicked away by Xiao Chen. His whole body fell backwards and landed on the ground like a wild goose falling on the sand. Then he was immediately pressed down by Mount Tai. He was hit so hard that he almost died. Seeing that Gong Sun Yen hadn't even finished speaking before he was beaten up by Xiao Chen without any ability to resist, Elder Sun was scared silly. After a long time, his body trembled and he recovered. He hurriedly ran over but didn't dare to pull Gong Sun Yen away. He could only beg politely, "Hero Xiao, please don't hit me. Let's talk this out." Xiao Chen heavily punched Gong Sun Yan's stomach again. Then he stood up and sneered, "You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. If you said that earlier, you wouldn't have to suffer this beating." Gong Sun Yan's eyes rolled back and he lay on the ground, speechless for a long time. Xiao Chen's beating had made him lose all his temper. Now he was as obedient as a rabbit. Seeing that he had finally beaten Gong Sun Yen into submission, Xiao Chen stared at him condescendingly and asked, "Let me ask you, what is the plan to enter the world of cultivators? And where are the Hong and Song families of the internal Wulin? I heard that they have set up a world of cultivators sacrifice. What is that for? Tell me everything you know. If you hide anything, you know what will happen to you." Cough, cough, cough. Gong Sun Yen coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood and struggled to get up. He also knew that if he didn't answer Xiao Chen's questions today, it would probably not end well. Chapter 1263. In desperation, Gong Sun Yen endured the pain in his body and said, "Originally, the world of cultivators was only a rumor in the martial arts world. But later, someone accidentally found a way to enter the world of cultivators and rushed in. That person's strength was originally outstanding, and after a few years he became even more powerful. He was invincible, so everyone yearned for that place." Gong Sun Yen honestly explained the matter of the world of cultivators. After listening, Xiao Chen nodded. He naturally knew that the person Gong Sun Yen was talking about was the supreme sect leader of Awakening Heaven sect, Situ Haotian. As for the other information about the world of cultivators, Gong Sun Yen and Elder Sun had more or less the same. It was nothing more than the fact that he wanted to obtain the cultivation resources of the world of cultivators and improve his strength. But Situ Haotian had set up many obstacles and obstructions, and his strength was far greater than Gong Sun Yan's. He had no other choice but to hide his strength and bide his time. He planned to sneak into the world of cultivators when the time was right. As for the Hong and Song families, Gong Sun Yen pondered for a while and continued, "Both of them are relatively secretive clans. They don't have much contact with the outside world. Ordinary people in the martial arts world may not know of the existence of these two clans." Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. No wonder not only Tang Qianling didn't know anything, But even the cultivators on the Venerable Realms Pier didn't know of the existence of the Hong and Song families. However, although their clans are relatively small and are far inferior to the three great clans and Awakening Heaven sect, they have an extremely mysterious cultivation method. Moreover, the venerable experts that they cultivate are several times stronger than other venerable experts of the same level. Gong Sun Yen sighed and said helplessly. Even he himself couldn't understand why the Hong and Song families were so powerful. They were all venerable experts, so why were the people of the Hong and Song families so powerful? If it weren't for another group of people restraining the Hong and Song families, as well as the development of the small clans that had submitted to them, and if it weren't for the fact that these people were so low-key, the people who ruled the martial arts world might have already changed hands. Oh, it's just a little stronger. It's no big deal. Xiao Qin shrugged, skipped this topic and asked, "You'd better talk about the sacrificial ceremony in the cultivation world. You should know about it, right? Do you know what they used as sacrifices?" Since the members of the Hong and Song families were cultivators, it was normal for them to be stronger than ordinary cultivators. Xiao Qin himself was originally like this, so he didn't take it to heart. What he was most concerned about now was the issue of the sacrifice. After all, the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect are very mysterious. Most of the knowledge about them in the martial arts world is limited to rumors. No sect or family dares to provoke them. Of course, they are usually more restrained and won't meddle in the affairs of other sections. Gong Sun Yen shook his head. Obviously, he knew very little about the two sections. What Immortal Cultivation sect? Ghost Cultivation sect? They were just talking about the Hong family and the Song family. Why did they suddenly bring up two random sects? Are you trying to fool me, or have you become stupid after being beaten by me just now? Do you want me to help you straighten it out again? Suddenly hearing these two unfamiliar terms, Xiao Qin immediately frowned. He clenched his fist and waved it in front of Gong Sun Yen, asking unhappily. So you don't know? Gong Sun Yen was stunned and asked subconsciously. What? If I don't know, are you going to make up a story? Xiao Qin stared at Gong Sun Yan's expression and asked coldly. No. Let me first describe the situation of these two sects to you. Gong Sun Yen hurriedly waved his hand, stopping Xiao Qin's further action, and then explained, in the martial arts world, most of the sects belong to the Martial Cultivation sect and the Devil Cultivation sect. There are sects and families, but the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect are exceptions. They are neither Martial Cultivation sect nor Devil Cultivation sect, but they have other cultivation methods. You mean the Hong family and the Song family belong to the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect respectively? Xiao Qin's eyes narrowed. It shouldn't be. The names of these two sects sounded a little confrontational, but the last time he saw in the Venerable Secret Realm, the relationship between these two families seemed to be quite good. No, the Hong family and the Song family belong to the Immortal Cultivation sect. This sect is formed by some unknown small families in the martial arts world, and these two families are the leaders of this sect. Gong Sun Yen paused for a moment and then continued, as for the Ghost Cultivation sect, it is formed by some evil cultivators. Their leader is called Shishan Giant Bull, and he is an extremely powerful expert. Shishan Giant Bull? Xiao Qin was shocked. His first guild mission in Songning City was to kill an evil cultivator, and his master who came to seek revenge was a guy called Shishan Old Devil. Later, Xiao Qin encountered evil cultivators with names starting with Shishan one after another. At that time he speculated that these people might belong to the same sect. He didn't expect to hear this name again today. It seemed that this Ghost Cultivation sect was their base camp. Yes, Shishan Giant Bull is the most powerful existence in the Ghost Cultivation sect. Gong Sun Yen naturally didn't know what Xiao Qin was thinking in his heart. He nodded and said, both the Immortal Cultivation sect and the Ghost Cultivation sect have their own unique cultivation methods, so their strength is much higher than that of ordinary martial cultivators and evil cultivators. However, these two sects have different ideologies, so they often fight with each other, which consumes a lot of energy. What the hell, I didn't expect the martial arts world to be so deep, Xiao Qin murmured. However, it's also fortunate that this is the case. If it weren't for the fact that they were fighting each other so fiercely, the inner martial world would have fallen into their hands long ago with their profound strength. Gong Sun Yen sighed and lamented. Since they are so powerful, haven't you sects ever considered forming a group to destroy them? I remember that you martial cultivators and evil cultivators have always been very disgusted with evil cultivators, right? Xiao raised his eyebrows and asked lightly. However, Xiao immediately figured it out. Based on the temperament of these people, they must have tried something similar. However, from the looks of it now, the result was bound to end in failure. After all, ordinary cultivators and cultivators were not on the same level. There was no comparison at all. Even if a group of ordinary cultivators went there, they wouldn't be able to pose any threat to cultivators. Sure enough, Gong Sunyen smiled helplessly and said, "Why not?" Back then, Master Sidu Haokong gathered all the sects of the Devil Cultivation sect in the martial arts world and wanted to wipe out the Ghost Cultivation sect in one fell swoop. In the end, when they just arrived at the enemy's territory before they had time to set up camp, they killed most of their people. Even he himself was seriously injured. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.